What if you were abandoned by your mother at birth, just because you failed an intelligence test? This is exactly what happened to Nenah Swanson, and she's not here to play nice. Abandoned by her mom as a kid for failing an intelligence test. But she didn't crumble. Raised by nightclub worker Scarlet, she became unstoppable, powerful, unbreakable, and fierce. Years later, the Swansons, her estranged family, beg her to return. But the minute she walks in, they dismiss her. Drop Scarlet's bad habits, mind her manners, earn her keep, like she's nothing. Then the plot twist hits. A rare limited edition superbike rolls up. Who is she, really? Read it now and drop your thoughts in the comments.
In an old neighborhood of Riverdale, a luxury car was parked in front of a yard. Martin Swanson sat inside, wearing a custom-made suit, his face showing impatience. He glanced at the expensive watch on his wrist, frowned, and got out, walking into the yard. Inside, Nenah Swanson wore cheap clothes and dug through a patch of soil with a hoe, tending to some strange plants. Martin looked annoyed. He strode over and asked in a deep voice, "What are you doing?" Nenah looked up at him. "Planting. Got a problem? I've been waiting for you outside for 2 hours and you're messing with this crap?" Martin frowned, his already grim expression darkened further. "You should know that you're part of the Swanson family." Nenah didn't stop working. She asked carelessly, So? Martin almost laughed in anger. "So stop doing things that don't fit your status, and I gave up a project that pays tens of millions of dollars an hour to come pick you up. You'd better not waste my time." Nenah finally stopped. She stared at Martin without saying a word. Martin continued, "Nenah, remember, our house isn't the nightclub you used to stay in. Drop all the low-class stuff you learned from Scarlet, and don't get smug just because you're my sister. We're related by blood, but I don't consider you family." His tone was stern, like he was giving orders to a subordinate. There wasn't a trace of joy at finding his long-lost sister, only a sense that this reunion was ridiculous. Lily, who he'd lived with for years, wasn't his real sister. The girl in front of him, raised by a nightclub hostess since childhood, was. When the Swanson family learned this, they were stunned. No one could accept that Nenah had been raised by a woman working at a nightclub. Even worse, the records they'd found showed Nenah hadn't finished high school and had been expelled. The reason was unclear, but Martin was sure she had done something bad. And the small yard, thanks to Scarlet Mayfield, the woman who had raised Nenah, had a lot of men coming and going. Martin didn't know if any of those men had tried to make a move on Nenah. The thought made him increasingly agitated. He didn't want to give up a multi-million-dollar project to bring home a sister full of scandals. 10 minutes, he commanded. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Nenah dropped the hoe and kicked Martin out of the gate. "Get out," she shouted. Martin never imagined he'd be kicked out by the sister he despised from the bottom of his heart. He kept a straight face and ordered the bodyguards, "Smash the door!" The guards rushed forward, banging the iron gate loudly. Nenah frowned, a bit impatient. She flexed her hands and feet, ready to deal with them, when a voice came from behind. "Just open it. Don't disturb the girls." Nenah turned and saw Scarlet sitting on the steps in a red dress. She held a cigarette, smoke curling slowly from her lips and dispersing into the air. Nenah gave her a sideways glance, but said nothing. She turned and opened the gate. Martin stormed in. "Aren't you so tough, kicking me out like that? I thought you were brave enough not to come back with me." Nenah looked at Martin coolly, the clothes on him making him look fancy, but his tantrum made him look childish. "I don't have to go back, but would you dare not take me?" "You." Martin choked on his words. He'd come to this rundown place because his grandmother, Sarah, had forced him, literally threatening him with death, to pick up Nenah. He didn't dare refuse. Nenah gave him a nonchalant glance. "Since you're here to bring me back, watch your attitude. I'm sure you already checked me out before coming. I have a bad temper, so you'd better stop lecturing me." She stepped forward to face him, her gaze sharp. "Cross my line, and I'll beat you up no matter who you are. Got it?" She sounded like a street punk, defiant and aggressive, which made Martin look even more irritated. He had only met Nenah for a few minutes, yet almost everything she'd said was a threat. Martin was about to lose his temper, but before he could speak, Nenah turned and went back to fiddling with the soil. His anger stayed trapped, neither vented nor gone, and it made him tense. 2 hours later, with Martin's patience almost gone, Nenah finally stopped what she was doing. She walked slowly toward the house. Soon, she came out carrying a suitcase. She had changed into a tight black leather outfit, her long hair flowing down her back. Her curves were perfectly outlined, beautiful and fierce at the same time. Martin stared at her, stunned. He remembered clearly that the outfit was the latest design by Linnell, of which only 2 copies existed. One for sale, one a gift. Lily had wanted it and asked him to grab it, but he had failed. He never expected Nenah to be wearing it. For a moment, he actually doubted it was real. But he had seen Linnell's designs up close, and the neckline bore Linnell's tiny signature L. The mark was small and easy to miss, but his eyes were so sharp that he spotted it immediately. The outfit wasn't fake, but Martin couldn't understand how a girl raised by a nightclub hostess could afford Linnell's design. Each piece sold for over $300,000. Nenah lifted her eyes and met Martin's shocked gaze. She withdrew her glance casually and walked slowly outside. When she passed Scarlet, she paused. She glanced at the cigarette butts scattered on the ground, frowned, took the cigarette from Scarlet's hand, tossed it down, and crushed it with her foot. "Smoke less. It's bad for you." Scarlet's hand froze in the air. She didn't say a word. "Keep an eye on my herbs," Nenah added. "They're pretty valuable." Scarlet snorted. "Who cares about that junk? Go live your fancy life. Don't come back." Nenah didn't respond, only reminded her, "Don't forget to take your medicine." Then she walked away without looking back. Martin opened the car door, but before he could say anything, Nenah pushed the suitcase forward. "It's taking your car." Then she walked straight to a top-tier motorcycle parked across the street and put on her helmet. Martin blew up. "Nenah, what the hell are you doing? Get down! Do you even know how much that bike costs? Can you even pay for it if you break it?" He'd seen the bike when he arrived and assumed some big shot had come to this shabby place. He never expected Nenah to dare touch it. Nenah gave him a sideways glance, started the motorcycle, and sped off, leaving Martin in shock. Martin froze. He was usually calm and unreadable, but now he was roaring inwardly. That bike was a world-class machine, the only one of its kind in the country, worth $2 million. The car he drove was only $600,000, yet Nenah had a $2 million bike. He couldn't help but wonder, wasn't she raised by a nightclub hostess? Could a hostess really be that rich? He stood there stunned for a long time, only driving off after Nenah completely disappeared from sight. It wasn't until both Nenah's bike and Martin's car were gone that Scarlet stood up. She dusted off the dirt on her clothes, dialed a number, and said, "We leave tomorrow morning." By the time Nenah and Martin reached the Swanson residence, the sky was already growing dark. Martin glanced at Nenah, who casually hung her helmet on the front of the motorcycle and shook out her long hair. He had no idea what to say. He was driving a car, and Nenah was on a motorcycle, yet they arrived at the same time. He couldn't help thinking that top-tier bikes really were something else. What he didn't know was that performance wasn't the only reason. The rider mattered just as much. Someone with poor skills could drive the most expensive car in the world and still move like a regular commuter. The entire Swanson family was waiting for Nenah in the living room. She had barely stepped inside when an unfriendly voice rang out. "So you're Nenah?" Nenah looked up and saw a woman in her early 40s. She wore an elegant, clearly expensive dress, every gesture dripping with wealth and confidence. This woman was her mother, Vivian Swanson, an intelligence researcher and the person who had abandoned her. Everyone in the Swanson family believed Nenah had been switched at birth and lost by mistake. No one knew Vivian had personally taken her to a mountain rumored to be deadly and left her there. It had all started because Nenah failed her childhood IQ test. As a scholar dedicated to studying human intelligence, Vivian couldn't accept having a stupid daughter. So when she found a girl who scored 155 and looked remarkably like Nenah, she took Nenah into the mountains and abandoned her. From that day on, the girl named Lily replaced Nenah and grew up with the Swanson family. Nenah pulled her thoughts back and simply looked at Vivian, calm and steady. In truth, her original IQ test had failed because of a machine malfunction. Later, Scarlet tested her again, and the result was 228. Nenah wondered whether Vivian would regret anything after learning what had happened. The thought made her strangely curious. What? Not going to say something? Are you mute? Vivian frowned, her disgust nearly overflowing. She was the only one who knew exactly how Nenah and Lily had been switched. She was shocked Nenah was even alive. She had personally taken Nenah to that dangerous mountain and left her there. She'd been absolutely certain the child wouldn't survive, which was why she felt safe bringing Lily home. She took Lily overseas for 4 years. Children's faces changed as they grew, so no one in the family noticed Lily wasn't Nenah. When Lily's identity eventually fell apart, Vivian made up a story about a mix-up at the hospital when Nenah was born to pacify everyone. But she never expected her mother-in-law to insist on finding Nenah. Vivian felt no guilt toward Nenah. If she could go back, she would make the same choice. She didn't want a retarded child. Of course, she didn't think Nenah would remember any of it. After all, Nenah had only been 6 back then. Mute, huh? What a shame. Every kid in our family is a genius, and we end up with a mute. I bet her IQ isn't high either. So what if she's smart? I heard she grew up with some nightclub hostess. All she'd learned from that woman is how to charm men. Even if she's clever, she'd never use it the right way. I don't know why Mom insists on bringing Nenah back. Lily may not be her real granddaughter, but she's outstanding. Prom queen, got into Betrico University with excellent grades, shining in multiple fields. What can Nenah do? Bringing her back will just embarrass us. The whispers kept going. Nenah scanned the Swansons one by one. Her memory was so sharp that she could match all these people to the relatives she remembered. When Vivian heard the gossip, her face dropped. Her children had always been the best of the Swanson family. Her nieces and nephews had done well under her guidance. And yet, here was Nenah, the useless daughter she had to bring back. The thought alone made Vivian feel sick. She said coldly, "Nenah, since you're a Swanson, we have to bring you back. But the Swanson residence is not a nightclub. You must stop all the bad habits you picked up from Scarlet, every single one. As long as you behave, we will treat you fairly. But if you cause trouble, don't blame me for kicking you out." Vivian glared at Nenah, her eyes full of disdain and contempt. Nenah looked up, about to speak, when she suddenly felt someone take her hand. A gentle voice spoke, "Nenah, as soon as I heard you were found, I picked out a gift for you." It was Lily. She took out a necklace and continued, "This diamond necklace was designed by a famous designer. I wanted to ask for your forgiveness. After all, it's because we were switched at birth that you've suffered so much." Nenah glanced at the necklace. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I just hope you won't kick me out. I've lived here for so many years, and I love Mom, Dad, and our brothers. I can't bear to be apart from them," Lily went on. "If you let me stay, I'll give you anything." Nenah sneered, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "A necklace sold for $3 at a flea market? Which famous designer would make something this cheap?" When she said, the whole room froze. Everyone finally realized that Nenah could speak. Lily was taken aback. The necklace had indeed come from a flea market. She had assumed a girl raised in a nightclub, who never even finished high school, wouldn't notice it was fake. She had only given the necklace to Nenah as a warning. She believed she was the Swanson family's rightful heiress, and she didn't want to share anything with a loser like Nenah. Seeing that Nenah had immediately recognized it as a street bargain, Lily just sneered, unconcerned. She knew no one would believe Nenah anyway. Vivian snapped coldly, "What nonsense are you talking about? This necklace was specially designed by the famous designer Linnell for Lily. It cost $300,000. It's one of a kind, and it even has your name on it. How could it possibly come from a flea market? Apologize to Lily immediately." Hearing that, Nenah lifted her eyes slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile curling at the corner of her mouth. "Mom, it's fine. Nenah never really dealt with jewelry as a kid, so it's normal she doesn't recognize it. Give it time, she'll get it eventually," Lily said, putting on an air of forgiveness, but the smugness in her eyes didn't escape Nenah. Martin couldn't stand it. Seeing Lily act like she'd been wronged, he snapped, "Nenah, didn't I warn you not to cause trouble for Lily? What are you doing now? Are you blaming her for taking your place?" Before Nenah could answer, he continued in a cold voice. You two were switched at birth. That's just bad luck. Why blame Lily? When she found out she was switched and caused you so much suffering, she felt guilty for a long time. She even personally picked out a gift so you'd accept her, and this is how you repay her. No sooner had Martin finished speaking than Nenah kicked him hard, sending him flying. Nenah stared at him without expression. Who do you think you are? Or did I somehow make you think you can lecture me? The scene shocked everyone. No one had expected that Nenah, who had just returned, to actually attack her own brother, and she didn't hold back at all. That kick had sent Martin spitting blood. Martin, are you okay? Lily rushed over, helping him to his feet, then scolded. Nenah, it wasn't Martin's fault that we were switched. If anyone's to blame, it's me. How could you kick Martin? You dare kick your brother, Vivian fumed. Today, I'm going to teach you some manners. Vivian raised her hand to strike, but before it could touch Nenah, Nenah grabbed it. The Nenah from before age 6 is dead, Mom, she said. She deliberately stretched the word mom, her voice cold and sharp, laced with biting sarcasm. Vivian's eyes went wide. She stumbled back a step, then another, nearly losing her balance. Her eyes were full of shock and fear. Mostly, though, it was disbelief. She hadn't expected Nenah to remember anything from before she was 6. Nenah's IQ was under 80. People with that level of intelligence usually had poor memory. By all logic, she shouldn't remember anything from before age 6. Nenah was pleased with Vivian's reaction. A sly smile curved her lips. Looks like you haven't forgotten either. How interesting. Vivian tried to say something, but Nenah ignored her and turned to Lily. Why don't you just shut up? Why do you have to shove your face in front of me? Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She looked wronged. Nenah, I know you're mad at me, but... Nenah cut her off impatiently. If you really want to know whether this necklace is Linnell, just get it appraised somewhere. That'll tell you. Then she cast a quiet glance over everyone present. Though I suppose you idiots wouldn't bother with an appraisal anyway. Her words insulted everyone in the room at once. Faces darkened immediately. Before anyone could snap, Nenah smirked. But since I'm in a good mood today, I'll do it for you, free of charge. She pulled out her phone, opened a social app, and made a video call to someone saved under L. The moment the call connected, a surprised voice came through. Nenah, I've missed you so much. I heard you went to Riverdale? Once I finish up here, I'll come see you. The Swansons froze, eyes wide, even forgetting to breathe. On the screen was Linnell, the designer no one ever got to see in person. Linnell was brilliant. She was the only designer in the country to top the charts at just 20. Her clothes and jewelry were nearly impossible to buy, even for the wealthy. She had a strange personality. To buy her designs, you had to meet her standards. People she didn't like couldn't buy her work, no matter how much money they offered. Most importantly, Linnell had extremely powerful backing. Wearing her designs signified high status. In high society circles, anyone wearing Linnell's creations to a party instantly earned respect. The Swanson family was one of the wealthiest in Riverdale, yet even they couldn't buy Linnell's designs, except for the necklace Lily had given Nenah. Lily had begged for it for a long time, and Linnell had finally made an exception. No one could have imagined that someone as extraordinary as Linnell would know Nenah, and judging by their interaction, they seemed quite close. Nenah glanced at the Swansons and gave a faint smile. Someone gave me a necklace and said it was designed by you. What? Linnell blinked in surprise, then pouted slightly. Nenah, I'm mad at you. Every single thing you wear is custom made by me, and you needed someone else to give you a necklace? At that, all eyes turned to Nenah. The Swansons hadn't looked closely before. Now they noticed that her clothes, shoes, backpack, watch, and everything else bore Linnell's unique mark. The total value of her outfit could buy a villa. They were stunned. Nenah, a girl raised by a hostess, how could she be so lucky to know Linnell? And Linnell is so kind to her, customizing everything she wears. The Swansons were envious, regretting that they hadn't been that fortunate themselves. Don't be mad. Listen to me, Nenah said cheerfully, trying to calm Linnell. This necklace was given to me by the Swanson family's adopted daughter. It's actually a $3 flea market piece, but she insisted it was yours. So I called you to verify it. What? Linnell shot up, her voice rising. She actually called a cheap piece of trash my design? Has she lost her mind? Point the camera at her. I want to see who's got the nerve. Nenah decisively turned the camera toward Lily. Lily's face went pale. She clutched the hem of her dress with both hands, too scared to breathe. She had only wanted to give Nenah a little warning, but she hadn't expected Nenah to know Linnell. Now she was about to be exposed in front of everyone. As Lily feared, Linnell's expression darkened as she stared at the necklace in Lily's hand. How can you say this junk is my design? Are you trying to scam Nenah? I didn't. Lily's eyes welled with tears, looking fragile and helpless. If it were a man on the other end, he might have felt sorry for her. But Linnell was not only a master designer, but also skilled at seeing through pretenders. She didn't fall for it. Tell me, why did you lie? Lily's legs wobbled, and she cried while explaining. I didn't know the necklace was fake. I asked my friend to buy it for me. She then stepped toward Nenah, trying to grab her hand, but Nenah sidestepped immediately. Don't touch me. Nenah's tone and attitude now were completely different from how she acted with Linnell. Lily panicked. Nenah, I'm sorry. I should have had it appraised first. I didn't expect such a big misunderstanding. I can get you a new necklace. Before Nenah could respond, Lily continued, Since you know Linnell, why don't you have her design one for you? I'll pay for it. Don't overestimate yourself, Linnell said disdainfully. Nenah doesn't need you to buy her anything. If she wants, I could give her trucks full of necklaces. Lily and the rest of the Swansons were stunned. For anyone else, getting a piece designed by Linnell was nearly impossible, but Nenah could have as many as she wanted. They almost thought Linnell had lost her mind. Nenah, turn the camera back. That girl keeps crying like she's at her mother's funeral. I don't want to see her anymore, Linnell said, full of disgust. Nenah immediately turned the camera toward herself again. Linnell looked at Nenah's stunning face and finally smiled. A beauty like Nenah is really pleasing to the eye, she thought. Oh, by the way, tell that girl with her makeup all caked on that my lawyer's letter will reach her in 2 hours, she said. She owes me $2 million. You can keep the money. Think of it as pocket money from me. Linnell was clearly furious. Normally, she would never hang up on Nenah before chatting for at least an hour, but this time she ended the call right away, unwilling to waste even another minute. Lily's face turned even paler. She knew offending Linnell would be a disaster, but she hadn't expected the consequences to come this fast. She didn't have $2 million. Her monthly allowance was only $30,000, and she liked buying luxury goods, so she had no savings at all. Nenah put her phone away, glanced at Lily, then met Vivian's eyes. I thought you brought in a genius to replace me. Turns out she's just an idiot. Vivian's face was ashen. So what if the necklace is fake? Someone like you doesn't deserve to wear anything real. Nenah, I'm warning you. Lily's going to Betrico University soon. She can't have any stains on her record before school starts. You'd better make Linnell drop the lawsuit, or I'll throw you out right now. Who would dare throw Nenah out? An elderly voice boomed. The Swansons scrambled to their feet. Several of them murmured respectfully, Mom. Sarah Swanson walked in, steady on her feet with Ethan Swanson supporting her, a perfectly tailored dress draped elegantly over her. She cast a cool glance around the room, then let her gaze settle on Nenah. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached out. Nenah, Grandma. Nenah took Sarah's hand, her tone respectful and calm, completely different from the way she'd spoken to the Swansons moments earlier. Nenah had always known exactly who treated her well. Sarah was one of the only 2 people in the Swanson family who cared about her. Sarah had raised her since she was little, and Nenah was closest to her. The other person who cared about Nenah was Ethan, one of her older brothers. Nenah looked at Ethan. He had indeed treated her well when they were kids, but she wasn't sure if he still felt the same now. Hey kiddo, remember me? Ethan stepped forward, smiling as he greeted her. Nenah smiled too. Hello, Ethan. Well, not bad. You really are my real sister, Ethan said with a roguish grin. No wonder I spoiled you so much. He pulled out a jewelry box and handed it to Nenah. This is for you. I hope you won't mind such a cheap gift. I only have $30,000. I kept $3,000 for living expenses and used the rest to buy this necklace. Once I start making real money, I'll get you something better." When he finished, Ethan glanced at the necklace in Lily's hand. "Oh, right. Lily got you one too. Heard it was designed by Linnell? Guess mine won't stand a chance next to that." Lily's face had completely drained of color. She bit her lip, looking like she was about to cry. "Ethan, my friend got scammed. The necklace wasn't designed by Linnell." "It wasn't?" Ethan exaggerated a look of surprise, then gasped. "Oh no, don't tell me you bought it for $3 at some flea market?" "Lily, how could you do that? You took my sister's place all these years, and the necklace you give her is something from a flea market? Don't you think that's going too far?" "It wasn't $3. Lily stomped her foot in anger. In fact, she'd paid $5. "No?" Ethan pulled out his phone and tapped a photo open. "Then this girl in the picture isn't you." Lily looked at the screen, and blood rushed straight to her head. She almost passed out. It was a photo of her picking out necklaces at a flea market. She thought, what on earth is wrong with Ethan? Why is he always staring at everything I do? And when did he even take this photo? How did I not notice at all? Lily looked completely mortified. She wanted to explain, but she had no idea how, so she could only turn teary-eyed toward Vivian. "Mom, the necklace I gave Nenah really wasn't $3. I did go to that flea market. When I walked by, a little girl asked me to help pick a design for her. I was choosing one for her, not for Nenah." Vivian patted her hand and said gently, "I know, sweetheart." Then Vivian turned to Ethan and snapped, "Ethan, what's wrong with you? It was just a misunderstanding. Besides, Nenah has lived in that small town all those years. Even if you gave her a real luxury necklace, it wouldn't look good on her." Ethan shot her a sideways look, then turned to Nenah. "Come here. Let me put the necklace on you. Let our dear mother see what a real heiress looks like." Before Nenah could answer, Ethan had already fastened the necklace around her neck. The tight leather outfit Nenah was wearing didn't really match the necklace, but she was so beautiful that anything she wore looked elegant once she put jewelry on. What Ethan did made Vivian and Lily burn with humiliation. Martin's face fell. "Ethan, that's enough. Lily did mess up, but she grew up with us. She's our sister too. Aren't you being too harsh, embarrassing her like this?" "I only have one sister, and that's Nenah. Lily has never been my family." Ethan looked utterly dismissive. "And Mom, you said they were switched at birth. Then how come Nenah remembers everything from when we were kids together, but Lily doesn't remember a thing?" Vivian went pale and couldn't get a word out. "Only you know what really happened back then," Ethan said. "If you want to treat an imposter like treasure, that's your business. But if you think you can kick out my real sister because of her, then don't blame me for losing it." Vivian was furious. She had 3 sons and 1 daughter. The first 2 boys always listened to her. Ethan was the only rebellious one, always going against her wishes. If Ethan's IQ hadn't been high enough, she would have thrown him away back then, just like she'd thrown away Nenah. Sometimes she even thought that because she didn't get rid of Ethan, the family ended up with another useless burden besides Nenah. Not only did Ethan mess around with rich kids all day, he was now even fighting her over Nenah. Sarah gave Vivian a cold, expressionless look. She didn't want to say much to her. Instead, she said frostily, "I went through hell and back to find Nenah. Anyone who dares try to throw her out can get out of this house immediately." Vivian still refused to back down. "Sarah, Nenah is just a..." Sarah cut her off sharply and turned to Lily. "I don't want to spell everything out. If you want to stay in the Swanson residence, stop causing trouble. No one replaces Nenah." "Grandma, I never wanted to replace Nenah," Lily said, eyes red as she explained. "The necklace really was a misunderstanding. I'll get her a proper one. I really just wanted to get along with her." No sooner had she finished speaking than a housekeeper hurried over and said to Sarah, "Mrs. Swanson, someone claiming to be Miss Linnell's attorney just delivered a lawyer's letter. He's demanding that Miss Swanson..." The housekeeper looked up and met Sarah's icy stare and quickly corrected herself. "He's demanding that Lily pay Linnell $2 million in damages within an hour and hand the money over to Nenah for safekeeping. Otherwise, he'll file a lawsuit." Lily's face twisted into panic. "Isn't it supposed to be 2 hours? How did the letter arrive so fast? It hasn't even been half an hour. Where am I supposed to get $2 million now? She shot Vivian a desperate look. Mom? Vivian looked troubled as well. She spoke to Nenah in a commanding tone. How can you come home and immediately cause trouble with Lily? Hurry up and tell Linnell it was all a misunderstanding. Ask her to let it go. Nenah scoffed. And why should I listen to you? Vivian snapped. I'm your mother. I'm telling you to clear this up with Linnell right now. Nenah kicked over the marble coffee table next to Vivian, the crash echoing through the room. Her voice was ice cold. Do you still think you can order me around? Nenah's sudden outburst startled everyone so badly they all trembled. Vivian was livid. She shouted, Nenah, what is wrong with you now? How many times do I have to tell you that this isn't the filthy nightclub you used to stay in? This is the Swanson residence, and you can't just do whatever you want. Nenah walked toward her step by step, then reached out and yanked Lily's hair hard. Still think so? Nenah's grip was so strong that Lily let out a sharp scream. Vivian was so angry her chest hurt. She pointed at Nenah, unable to get a single word out for a long moment before finally turning to Sarah. Sarah, this is the wonderful granddaughter you insisted on bringing home. Look at her. She's been back for not even an hour, and the whole house is in chaos, and now she's bold enough to lay hands on her sister. Do you really want to keep such a troublemaker here? Sarah gave Nenah a glance. Nenah doesn't have a sister. Aren't you a professor? Aren't you the one who always says people should be punished when they make mistakes? When Nenah does something wrong, you would punish her. But when Lily does it, you think she shouldn't be punished? That's different, Vivian roared. Lily is the daughter I raised with care. She excels in every subject and is about to attend Betrico University. How can Nenah compare to her? And besides, Lily didn't intentionally give Nenah a fake necklace. It was just a tiny mistake. Why punish her for that? Sarah let out a laugh from sheer fury. People who mess up should face the consequences. Lily made a mistake, and as her mother, you're partly to blame. Haven't you always covered for her? Well, if she can't afford the compensation, you can pay it for her. Sarah, how can you say that? Vivian couldn't understand why Sarah had never liked Lily. Lily is your granddaughter, too. She loves you so much. Do you really have to break her heart like this? Sarah's expression didn't change. Since you refuse to discipline Lily, the Riverdale Correctional Facility staff will do it for you. Lily, terrified, clutched Vivian's hand. Mom, I don't want to go to jail. Vivian nearly fainted from rage. She felt she had never been this furious in her life. But seeing how unmoved Sarah was, she could only give in. Fine, I'll pay the money for Lily. Vivian reluctantly transferred $2 million to Nenah. This money is for Linnell. You're not allowed to spend it. Do you hear me? Nenah stuffed her phone into her pocket without even looking at her. Vivian felt her blood pressure spike, but there was nowhere for her anger to go. Sarah rubbed her temples. I'm tired. Nenah, help me upstairs to rest. Nenah nodded and helped Sarah up the stairs. Ethan shot a cold look at the rest of the Swansons before following them. The remaining family members let out a few awkward laughs and hurried off, leaving only Vivian, Lily, and Martin behind. Lily stared in the direction of the staircase, a flash of hatred crossing her eyes. She thought, Nenah, I worked so hard to get everything I have. Why should I give it up just because you came back? Everything in the Swanson family is mine. Don't think you can take even a fraction of it. The next day, when Nenah came downstairs, the first person she saw was James Swanson, her father, sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Nenah scoffed and kept walking. Sarah was already waiting for her at the dining table. When she saw Nenah coming down, she waved with a smile. Nenah, come here, sweetheart. Grandma. Nenah greeted her and sat down beside her. Ethan came down after Nenah. He immediately took the seat right next to her. Sarah held Nenah's hand, her eyes filled with affection that was almost overflowing. Did you sleep well? Yeah. Nenah was sweet and well-behaved in front of Sarah. Martin happened to catch this scene. He couldn't help letting out a cold laugh. Girls raised in nightclubs really are different, he thought. Nenah is clearly great at using pretty words to charm people, reading faces, and knowing exactly who runs this house. The Swansons arrived one after another. Only then did James fold up his newspaper. When he saw Nenah, he froze for a second before giving a cool nod. You're back? He was on terrible terms with Vivian, so he didn't care much about any of their children. All he knew was that Lily had recently been found not to be his and Vivian's real daughter. Sarah had spent a lot of effort finding his real daughter and was determined to bring her home. But to James, bringing Nenah back or not didn't make much difference. He had never liked any of the kids. Nenah coming home just meant one more person at the table, so he simply let Sarah handle it. He had returned very late the night before and gone straight to the study to sleep, so he didn't even know Nenah was already home. Seeing her now surprised him a bit, but Nenah's strong presence did make him take another look. He remembered Nenah had been raised by a woman who worked in a nightclub. He couldn't help wondering how someone like that managed to raise a child with such a commanding aura. "Hello, Dad," Nenah said flatly. She didn't love James, but she didn't hate him the way she hated Vivian. To her, he was merely a stranger living under the same roof. James gave a small nod and didn't bother talking further. The atmosphere at the table went quiet for a moment. "Since everyone is here today, there's something I need to say," Sarah said, setting down her fork, her expression turning serious. Everyone fell silent, waiting for her. The marriage alliance between the Foster family and ours was meant for Nenah, but because Nenah was abandoned. Sarah paused for a beat, then continued, "Because Nenah and Lily were switched at birth, the engagement fell to Lily. Now that Nenah has been found, the engagement should be returned to her." Lily's hands tightened into fists immediately. "Grandma, Mrs. Foster said she wanted me to marry her grandson. Besides, Mr. Foster and I are in love." She cursed inwardly. "Damn it, it's bad enough Nenah came back to steal what's mine, and now she wants to take my marriage too?" She had admired Ryan Foster since she was a kid and had worked so hard just to get the chance to be engaged to him. There was no way she was going to let Nenah have him. Besides, Nenah never learned any proper etiquette. Families like the Fosters probably wouldn't want her anyway, right? Lily knew Sarah didn't like her, but she had to fight for this engagement. "Etiquette can be learned," Sarah said, "but no one can take what belongs to Nenah." Vivian immediately bristled. "Sarah, even if you favor her, there has to be a limit, right? Lily may not be your biological granddaughter, but she's been raised in our home since she was little. She loves us. We all know she's had a crush on Ryan, and now you want her to hand over her fiancé to someone else? Have you considered her feelings?" Then Vivian turned to glare at Nenah. "And even if you favor Nenah, you should at least think about whether she's qualified to marry him. She was raised by a nightclub hostess. If you let her marry Ryan, wouldn't that ruin the Foster family's reputation?" Nenah was texting. When she heard Vivian mention her name, she finally looked up at her. Seeing Nenah's careless expression only made Vivian angrier. "What are you looking at? Do you really think just because you're back in the Swanson family, you're some highborn heiress? You think you deserve Ryan Foster? You better drop these ridiculous thoughts." Nenah felt like she recognized the name, but she wasn't entirely sure. "Who are you talking about?" she asked. Vivian's face turned red with fury. That was when she realized, after going on and on, Nenah hadn't been listening at all. "Nenah, we're talking about your engagement to Ryan Foster," Sarah said. "This engagement was meant for you from the start. It only fell to Lily because you weren't home. Now that you're back, it's only fair that the engagement returns to you. What do you think?" Hearing Ryan's name, Nenah paused for a moment. She looked down at her phone silently. She had just blocked Ryan and saved him as ex-boyfriend. Nenah quietly put her phone in her pocket. "Engagement tomorrow." "What?" Vivian was furious, thinking Nenah actually wanted to marry Ryan. "Nenah, tomorrow is a good day for an engagement. Lily and Ryan's wedding should happen sooner rather than later." Nenah stood up, cutting Vivian off. "It's decided. Make sure you tell me the time for the engagement party." She wanted to use this opportunity to push Ryan and Lily together so he wouldn't keep bothering her. She figured it was a smart move. Nenah left, leaving the Swansons staring after her in confusion. Neither Vivian nor Lily had expected that the girl who had been acting like a ticking time bomb since coming home would actually give up such a good marriage opportunity. Sarah was surprised too. She had assumed that Nenah would want to marry Ryan. There weren't many girls who wouldn't like someone like Ryan. Despite his young age, he already controlled the vast foster family business. And on top of that, he was breathtakingly handsome, 1 in a million. The only downside was that he was a bit cold and distant. Many families had tried to arrange a marriage with the Fosters, but Ryan's grandmother, Maria, had refused every time because the Foster family and the Swanson family had already agreed on an engagement years ago. When the Fosters came to discuss the marriage, Sarah wasn't home. It was Vivian who received them. Since everyone at the time thought Lily was the Swanson family's real daughter, the engagement went through without any problem. But originally, it should have been Nenah going for the engagement. If she had married Ryan, not to mention anything else, Maria would have treated her extremely well. Sarah hadn't expected Nenah to not want to marry Ryan, and she seemed to resist the engagement altogether. She couldn't understand why Nenah felt that way. Since Nenah said she doesn't want the engagement, I'll talk to the Fosters and finalize the marriage between Ryan and Lily as soon as possible, Vivian said, worried about any changes, making the decision before Sarah could respond. Though Sarah was reluctant to let Lily replace Nenah and marry Ryan, she couldn't argue with Vivian's decision at the moment. After all, the Swanson family and the Foster family were not only future in-laws but also business partners. Sarah muttered unhappily, "Do as you see fit." The thought of Lily taking what rightfully belonged to Nenah left her in a bad mood. She didn't even want to eat and turned to leave. The next day, the Swanson family and the Foster family held the engagement party. Vivian was incredibly efficient. Almost immediately after Sarah gave the word, she went straight to Maria's residence in Riverdale and locked in the engagement date as fast as possible. The Fosters agreed without hesitation, setting the engagement for noon the very next day. Since the party was organized in such a rush, only the direct relatives from both families attended. More people came from the Swanson side. Sarah had 3 sons and 2 daughters, and James alone had 5 children. Add the others' kids, and there were about a dozen in total. They took up 3 tables. The Foster family had far fewer attendees, just Maria and her husband Zachary, Ryan's parents, and Ryan himself. The rest of the Foster family was in Betrico. Their empire was too big to leave all their affairs behind for an engagement party. The party hadn't started, and the Fosters hadn't arrived yet. Martin glanced at Nenah, who was sitting beside Ethan, chatting, then walked over with a stern face. "Nenah, I need to remind you, this engagement was your choice to give up. When the Fosters arrive, you'd better sit there quietly and not cause any trouble," Martin said, his expression serious. "Got it?" Nenah leaned lazily in her chair, staring at Martin, then let out a cold smirk. "Martin, want me to kick you again?" "You?" Martin scowled. "Anyway, I warned you in advance. If you cause trouble later, don't blame me for not holding back." Nenah sat up and reached for the coffee cup on the table. Ethan quickly held her back. "Calm down. I know that poker-faced jerk deserves a beating. You can take him down all you want after today, but don't embarrass Grandma." Sarah and Maria were close friends. Today was an important day for both families, and if Nenah beat up Martin here, it would certainly make Sarah look bad. Nenah was silent for a moment, then slowly set the cup down. "Get lost before I get mad," she said to Martin. She was actually in a great mood today. Her ex, who had been bothering her for 2 months, was about to get engaged. The thought of finally getting rid of Ryan made her genuinely happy. And yet Martin, clueless as ever, still came over looking for trouble. She shook her head, deciding not to argue with him, not wanting to ruin her mood. "You're really rude," Martin muttered. He knew Nenah had a temper and wouldn't hesitate to throw a punch. He had already been kicked twice by Nenah. If it weren't for Lily, he wouldn't even be talking to Nenah. So, leaving it at that, he returned to his seat. Before long, the Foster family arrived. Maria and Sarah chatted for a while, then sat hand in hand as if they were 2 young girls who had just become friends. Nenah glanced toward the door and froze. She wondered, where's that troublesome ex of mine? Isn't he supposed to be engaged today? Is that idiot trying to skip it? The thought made her anxious. If Ryan ran away from the engagement, he'd just keep bothering her later. She had to make sure he showed up for this. Nenah picked up her phone, about to make a call, when she heard Sarah ask, "Why isn't Ryan here?" Vivian and Lily both tensed, eyes flicking to Maria. Lily especially fidgeted, her hands twisting in her lap. She was terrified Ryan might back out of the engagement. After all, this marriage had never been hers to begin with. "Don't even mention it. I have no idea where he's hiding. We just can't find him," Maria said, rubbing her temples with a helpless look. "But it doesn't matter. The engagement party will go on as planned. You have my word. The only woman Ryan's going to marry is Lily." Nenah silently slipped her phone back into her pocket, thinking it was fine as long as Lily and Ryan got engaged. Lily let out a sigh of relief. She and Nenah were on the same page. Once the engagement was official, even if Ryan was unwilling, he would still be her fiancé. Just thinking about finally being engaged to the boy she'd secretly loved for years made her heart race. Although the engagement party was simple, all the proper rituals were observed. The Foster family, following tradition, gave the Swanson family the agreed-upon engagement gift, $300,000. Normally, a family like the Fosters would give a gift worth at least $10 million. But because Sarah and Maria were friends, the gift was purely symbolic. This engagement gift was actually Sarah's decision. No one else in the Swanson family had a say. But in truth, Vivian was dissatisfied. She thought the amount was far too small. James didn't care about this at all, and he had no intention of using the engagement for profit. The Swanson family, though not as wealthy as the Fosters, was still a prominent family in Riverdale. Even if James didn't like Lily, he didn't want anyone thinking he was trading his daughter for money. Therefore, on the engagement gift, the two families reached an agreement happily. Next came discussions about the jewelry Ryan and Lily would wear at the wedding date, and other details. These decisions were left to the elders of both families. Once all that was settled, it was time for the official engagement ceremony. Since Ryan hadn't arrived, Maria stood in for him. Just as the engagement ceremony was about to begin, the hotel doors were suddenly kicked open. Everyone's faces darkened. They immediately wondered which idiot had the nerve to cause trouble at the Swanson Foster engagement party. But when they saw who had come in, they were all stunned. Why is Ryan here? Didn't he hide to avoid getting engaged to Lily? How was he here now? Could it be that he had finally accepted Lily? They wondered. "You little punk, where have you been? Come on up. The engagement ceremony is about to start," Maria said, visibly relieved to see Ryan. She felt at ease. At least his arrival meant he was accepting the marriage. But what surprised Maria even more was that Ryan didn't glance at her. Instead, his eyes swept across the hall and finally landed on Nenah. He walked straight toward her, face cold. He stopped in front of Nenah, his expression icy and his voice tinged with anger. "Why did you break up with me?" What Ryan had done left everyone in the room stunned. Many people turned their heads, staring at him and Nenah in disbelief. Ryan pressed his long fingers against Nenah's shoulder, teeth gritted. "I need an explanation." Nenah rubbed her temples, a little exasperated. "You really don't know why I broke up with you?" "I don't know." Ryan's hand on her shoulder tightened slightly. He was practically roaring. "I woke up and found out you broke up with me for no reason. Do you know how desperate that made me feel? Have you even considered my feelings?" A hint of bloodshot red glimmered in Ryan's eyes, his expression full of hurt and grievance. The Fosters were dumbfounded. They could hardly believe that this desperate young man before them was really Ryan. Ryan was usually so domineering, cold, and indifferent, yet now he looked at Nenah with such vulnerability, as if seeking her comfort. No one knew what was going on. "For no reason?" Nenah fixed her gaze on him, slowly repeating the words. "Then tell me why we broke up. What did I do wrong that made you want to ditch me?" Ryan's voice trembled. "Was it that I didn't provide you proper meals? Or that I missed a date? Or maybe I didn't serve you properly? You're not breaking up with me just because I didn't dare to watch horror movies with you, are you?" Ryan sighed. "If that's the case, I can change. I'll watch dozens of horror movies today. How's that?" No one could understand how Ryan felt. He woke up one morning to find a breakup message from Nenah, and it felt as if the world had ended. The worst part was, he didn't even know why he'd been dumped. He went looking for Nenah, demanding an explanation, but she ignored his messages and calls. He didn't even know where she had gone. A few days ago, he learned she had returned to Scarlet's place, so he rushed there in a panic. But not only did he not see Nenah, Scarlet was gone too. The yard was completely empty except for the herbs Nenah had cared for. Everything else had been moved out. He immediately leveraged all his connections to track Nenah down and finally discovered she was in Riverdale. Yet yesterday, when he tried messaging her, Nenah had blocked him. He pinpointed her location and rushed straight here. From yesterday until now, he hadn't eaten or drunk a thing. He was both furious and helpless. Nenah pressed a hand to her forehead, utterly exasperated. She thought, what is this guy even talking about? Lily was still on stage, tearful, watching him. Does he really not know why I broke up with him? Nenah, you took my virginity. You promised you'd be with me forever. Don't think you can push me away, Ryan said, clinging to her like a spoiled child. Nenah furrowed her brows, her patience completely exhausted. Then she kicked Ryan away. What are you playing at? You cheated and still pretend to be innocent? I only didn't rip you apart because you took good care of me and Scarlet. Now get lost. Leave me alone. Nenah! Ryan immediately lost his temper. Tell me clearly, when did I cheat? I've spent 24 hours a day with you. How could I have cheated? Nenah leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and glanced at Lily on stage. Your fiancé is waiting for you, Mr. Foster. Aren't you going to see her? What the hell are you talking about? Ryan followed her gaze. He didn't see Lily, only his parents and grandparents. A flash of shock crossed Ryan's eyes. Grandpa, Grandma, Dad, Mom? Seeing Ryan so stunned, his family didn't know what to say. They wondered if he hadn't noticed them when he came in. In fact, Ryan truly hadn't. He had driven overnight last night, not slept, not eaten, with nothing but thoughts of Nenah. The moment he entered the hall, he was only searching for Nenah. He hadn't even heard Maria speaking to him. As Ryan paused, everyone slowly realized the shocking truth. Nenah had slept with Ryan, the head of the Foster family, and she had dumped him. The reason seemed to involve cheating, but it appeared to be a misunderstanding. Ryan had spent all his time with Nenah. He hadn't had the opportunity to cheat. Some of the women present felt a pang of jealousy toward Nenah. They also wanted a handsome, rich man who could spend all his time with them. Yet Nenah had dumped Ryan. On stage, Lily's face twisted in anger. She had schemed so hard to secure this engagement, only to discover that Ryan was actually Nenah's ex, and that Nenah had been the one to break up with him. The thought that the man she had worked so hard to get was someone Nenah had dismissed filled Lily with frustration. She took several deep breaths, trying to calm the rage inside her. It doesn't matter. I have to be magnanimous. Even if Nenah doesn't want Ryan, I'll treat him like a treasure. She didn't care who Ryan had dated before. All she wanted was to marry him. Exhaling sharply, Lily forced a smile and walked toward Ryan. Ryan, you finally made it. The ceremony is about to start, so don't waste any time. She glanced at Nenah. Nenah really hopes we can get married. She already blessed me yesterday. Right, Nenah? Before Nenah could respond, Ryan shoved his hands in his pockets and frowned. Who are you? Lily maintained her polite smile. Go away. Ryan's cold face carried a sharp frost. His words were merciless. Your ugly face disgusts me. After saying that, he immediately turned his gaze to Nenah. Nenah frowned, but Ryan held her in place. Don't move. I need your beauty to forget that ugly skank. Both Lily and Nenah fell silent at his rude words. Everyone present was reminded that Ryan had a notoriously bad temper. Only when he was with Nenah did he show any restraint. Lily bit her lip, tears threatening to spill. Ryan, how can you say that to me? I'm your fiancée, chosen by your grandmother herself. She was the prom queen of Riverdale High, yet Ryan called her ugly. Fiancé? Ryan frowned. And you think you deserve that? Ryan's grandparents and Sarah finally realized what was happening. Maria stepped forward and slapped Ryan on the back. You brat, who told you to speak to Lily like that? How can you embarrass a girl? Then explain it. Since when did I get a fiancé? Ryan pulled over a chair, crossed his legs, and leaned back lazily, his tone casual. But anyone who knew him could tell this was the calm before the storm. He was furious. Being dumped by my girlfriend for no reason would be bad enough, and now I have a fiancé too? No wonder Nenah broke up with me. It was all this skank's fault. This engagement was arranged by Sarah and me. Lily is. Maria tried to explain, but Ryan impatiently cut her off. I'm breaking off the engagement. Lily instantly turned pale. Vivian shouted anxiously, "How can you break it off? Both families are here today. If you cancel, how will Lily face anyone in the future?" Maria knew Ryan's temper. She glanced at Nenah, a half smile on her face. "Originally, your fiancée was Nenah. I was just thinking, since you and Nenah were a couple, why not just get engaged to her? After all, you need to marry a girl you actually want. If you've decided to break the engagement with Lily, then so be it." Ryan froze. Suddenly, he grabbed Nenah's hand and pulled her up onto the stage. "Then let's start." Everyone was stunned, unsure of what he was about to do. Seeing that no one reacted, Ryan frowned slightly and asked coldly, "Isn't this my engagement party? Why are you all just standing there?" Maria fell silent. It was the first time she had seen Ryan, who normally dismissed everyone, look so desperate. Ryan's parents were also silent. Seeing how impatient he was, they had to admit that he should be the one to choose his fiancée. Sarah shook her head, thinking, "Does he take my granddaughter for granted? As if she's takeout, he can just grab and go?" The atmosphere became tense. All eyes turned to Lily. Lily felt exposed under countless gazes, wishing she could disappear on the spot. Her fiancé not only wanted to break off their engagement, but also intended to get engaged to another woman right at her engagement party. Clearly, he didn't regard her at all. Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. She grabbed Vivian's hand, sobbing, "Mom, what am I supposed to do if Ryan marries Nenah? You know I've loved him since I was a child. I do feel guilty for taking Nenah's place all these years, but Ryan is the one I love the most." When Vivian heard that, her heart ached. She wiped the tears from Lily's face and gently said, "Don't worry, no one can take what belongs to you." Then Vivian stepped forward and scolded sharply, "Nenah, have you had enough? You and Lily being switched at birth wasn't her fault. Why are you always targeting Lily? Yesterday you hit her, and today you even try to steal her fiancé. Why is your desire for revenge so extreme?" At that moment, Nenah had just lifted her foot, ready to kick Ryan, but Vivian's words froze her in midair. After a moment, Nenah lowered her foot and looked at Vivian with cold indifference. Martin glared at Nenah, his eyes dark. "I warned you not to cause trouble for Lily. Seems like you didn't listen at all. Nenah, don't think just because your grandmother backs you, I'm powerless against you. This engagement was yours to give up. Yet here you are, in front of all these people, trying to steal it and make Lily look bad. Don't blame me for being merciless." He kept his expression cold. "I'll give you two choices. 1, you clear things up with Ryan and apologize to Lily. 2, I'll have someone throw you out of this hall." Nenah chuckled. She hadn't heard such a ridiculous threat in a long time. She lifted her foot, ready to walk toward Martin, but Ryan moved first. His steps were slow, deliberate, and his sheer presence forced everyone to instinctively take a step back. Ryan stopped in front of Martin, spinning the ring Nenah had given him between his fingers. His voice was icy. "Are you threatening her?" Martin looked up, fearless. "Ryan, I don't care what happened between you and Nenah before. Right now, you're Lily's fiancé. You need to cut ties with Nenah immediately." He glanced at Nenah. "And yes, I am threatening her. If she keeps entangling herself with you, I'll personally make sure she's kicked out of the Swanson family." No sooner had Martin finished speaking than Ryan struck. No one saw exactly how, but by the time they realized, Martin's hand was broken. Before anyone could process it, Ryan kicked Martin all the way to the hotel entrance. The force was brutal. Martin spat blood on impact. Gasps filled the hall. Before anyone could react, Ryan picked up a chair and slowly approached him. Martin was lying on the ground, unable to move. When he looked up, he saw Ryan advancing, the chair in his hand. Ryan's steps were deliberate, slow. The hotel lights cast shadows over him, making him look like a demon risen from hell. Martin scrambled backward, but every step he took was matched by Ryan's advance. The hotel hall doors were behind him, closed. He had nowhere to run. What are you going to do?" Martin tried to stand, but his body refused to obey. He could only bluff. "How dare you hit me? My grandmother and yours are friends. Aren't you afraid of causing a feud between them?" Maria and Sarah exchanged glances, then turned away. They weren't going to feud. Even if Ryan killed Martin tonight and got sentenced for it, their friendship wouldn't break. No one could know how deep their bond ran. Ryan stopped in front of Martin. one hand in his pocket, the other gripping the chair. His expression was ice cold, his voice even darker than before. "You dare threaten my girl?" He didn't give Martin a chance to respond. With a single motion, he brought the chair crashing down on Martin's legs with a thunderous crack. Martin's scream of agony ripped through the hall, echoing off the walls. Ryan pulled a pack of wet wipes from his pocket and calmly wiped his hand that had just lifted the chair. Then he casually grabbed the nearest person and asked with complete composure, "Got cash?" "What?" The man was suddenly yanked forward and nearly jumped out of his skin. He hadn't offended Ryan, so he had no idea why this sudden fury was aimed at him. He was so stunned that when Ryan asked about cash, he froze. When he finally registered what was happening, his eyes met Ryan's, cold and sharp. I have." The man immediately dug into his briefcase and pulled out $30,000. "Is this enough?" These days, nobody carried much cash. This money was from a delivery he just collected before coming to the party, not yet deposited in the bank. But now Ryan had effectively robbed him. What was worse, this man wasn't a Swanson or a Foster. He was here to attend a wedding, only to find he was in the wrong hall. When he was about to leave, he found it was the engagement party of Ryan, the head of the Foster family. So he decided to sit and watch out of curiosity. He never expected Ryan to snatch his money. He felt like crying. "That's enough." Ryan took the cash and tossed it to Martin. "Consider this your medical bill." Then he threw the wet wipe he'd used onto the floor in front of Martin. "Remember this. You can disrespect me all you want, but you do not disrespect my girlfriend. Next time, you won't be this lucky. You'll end up lying in the hospital." Vivian, who had been stunned by Ryan, finally snapped back, screaming, "Martin, are you okay?" Then she glared at the servers standing nearby. "What are you waiting for? Get him to the hospital, now." Martin was sent to the hospital hurriedly before he could say anything. Vivian stood up, furious, and stormed over to Maria. Her voice trembled with anger. "Maria, what is going on today? You need to explain this to me. You personally insisted Lily should get engaged to Ryan, yet now he wants to break it off and has severely injured Martin. How could you treat us like this?" "Shut up," Sarah said coldly. "Martin deserved it. What does any of this have to do with the Fosters? I'd even say Ryan did the right thing." Vivian stared at Sarah in disbelief. "Sarah, Martin is your grandson. How can you say that? Your grandson was beaten up, and instead of caring about him, you say he deserved it?" "Even if he's my grandson, he doesn't get to make decisions for me," Sarah said with no expression. "I'm still standing right here, and he actually said he'd throw Nenah out of the house. Since when does Martin get to speak for the Swanson family?" Vivian argued back, unwilling to back down. "Martin did nothing wrong. This whole thing was Nenah's fault. If she and Ryan were dating, why didn't she say it from the start? She insisted on acting noble and giving the engagement to Lily. Since she gave it up, she should have kept her distance from Ryan." Vivian shot a sharp look at Nenah, who stood silently on the stage. But she had to steal Lily's fiancé in front of everyone. How is Lily supposed to face others now? Martin loves Lily the most. He couldn't stand seeing her bullied and stood up for her. What's wrong with that? "He was wrong," Sarah said bluntly. "He was wrong because he didn't stand up for his own sister but chose to stand up for someone else." "You," Vivian almost choked with anger. "You're being completely unreasonable. Nenah hasn't even been back that long, and Lily has lived here all these years. Martin practically watched Lily grow up. Of course he favors her more." "Oh?" Ryan cast Vivian a cold glance. "I think I get it. My girlfriend is the real heiress of the Swanson family, and you all don't like her?" Nenah wanted to kick him off the stage again. "Girlfriend? I'm your ex. Seriously?" she thought irritably. Vivian almost blurted out, "Yes, I don't like her. Why should Lily lose everything the moment Nenah came back?" But she didn't dare say it. She was afraid Ryan would lose it again. Seeing Ryan's unhappy expression, Lily worried he might do something crazy, so she rushed to explain. "Ryan, you misunderstood. We never disliked Nenah. It's just that Nenah only got back recently, and we aren't that close yet. Don't blame Martin. He was just standing up for me." Lily turned to Nenah. "If Nenah had told us earlier that you were her boyfriend, I never would have agreed to the engagement. Things wouldn't have turned out like this." Ryan didn't even look at her. He said coldly, "I told you not to show that ugly face of yours in front of me." Lily froze, but she still forced a polite smile. "Got it." Then she walked up to Nenah and spoke softly. "Nenah, I'm sorry. I really didn't know and only agreed to the engagement because I was unaware. Since you and Ryan care about each other, I'll give the engagement back to you." Lily felt like her heart was breaking. She didn't want to give up the engagement, but with things blowing up like this, insisting on marrying Ryan would only make things worse. Besides, she could see it clearly now. Ryan didn't even want to look at her. He was completely obsessed with Nenah. Lily had no idea what tricks Nenah learned from that hostess to hook someone, but she'd completely wrapped Ryan around her finger. So she told herself she needed to be patient. What belonged to her, whether a person or a thing, she would never let anyone take away. But Nenah just glanced at her nonchalantly. "Who do you think you are? I don't need you to give me anything." "Nenah gets whatever she wants," Ryan said. "Before anyone tries to give her something, they'd better make sure they're worthy." He walked over to Nenah, wrapped an arm around her shoulder, and swept a cold look across the room before staring at the Swansons. "Since you all don't like Nenah, why don't you just disown her? Nenah doesn't need you. I'll take care of her." Vivian's face went rigid. Ryan was humiliating the Swanson family in front of everyone. Lily's expression twisted for a moment before she forced an awkward smile. There was nothing she could say. With Ryan backing Nenah, anything she said would only turn into humiliation. Sarah looked at Ryan with displeasure. "My Nenah doesn't need you to take care of her. She hasn't even agreed to get engaged to you." Ryan turned his head, looking at the girl he held closest to his heart. "Nenah, stop it. I really didn't cheat on you. Since we already have a marriage agreement, why don't we just get engaged today?" Once they were engaged, Nenah would be his fiancée. He wouldn't have to worry about her leaving him again. Nenah looked at him calmly. Then, right as Ryan waited with hope all over his face, she kicked him away. "Get lost. I never give a man a second chance." With that, Nenah walked off. Ryan, furious, rushed after her. "You think you can just run away?" Nenah and Ryan ran out one after the other, leaving the rest of the hall stunned. Maria cleared her throat, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Sarah. Everything that happened today really was our fault. I had no idea Ryan already knew Nenah. If I'd known, none of this confusion would have happened." Sarah sighed. Maria didn't know, and neither did she. Yesterday, she had sensed something off when Nenah heard Ryan's name, like she was trying to avoid something. She didn't expect Nenah and Ryan to have dated. "This isn't your fault," Sarah said, "but we should talk about the engagement another time. I don't think Nenah wants it right now, and we can't force her to marry Ryan. You know how long it took me to find her. I don't want her upset." "I understand." Maria patted Sarah's hand. "Then we'll discuss the engagement later. Let Nenah and Ryan work things out on their own. If Nenah changes her mind someday, we'll finalize it then." "All right," Sarah said. The two older women chatted and laughed as if none of this had affected them at all. Vivian and Lily, however, did not look pleased. Vivian couldn't even bring herself to stay. Without saying goodbye to Maria, she grabbed Lily and left. The Swansons exchanged looks and decided they shouldn't stay either. One by one, they left as well. Only Ethan remained. From the moment Ryan walked in and asked Nenah why she broke up with him, Ethan had been standing there with his mouth wide open, unable to close it. When the hall finally emptied, Sarah smacked the back of Ethan's head. Only then did he slowly snap out of it. He gasped, "Oh my God, Nenah is insane. She not only took Ryan's virginity, but also dumped him? No other girl has ever pulled that off, right?" Sarah shot him a look. "Shut up. Nenah was getting bullied just now, and you stood there like a coward. Why didn't you stand up for her?" Ethan scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "I was just too shocked. My brain froze." Then he suddenly jumped to his feet. "Crap, Ryan is a violent maniac, and Nenah embarrassed him like that. He won't hit her, will he? I need to go save Nenah." Ethan bolted out like a gust of wind. Ethan ran several red lights on his way back to the Swanson residence. He was worried Ryan might have bullied Nenah. But after chasing all the way, he still hadn't caught up to her, so he figured he should head home first to check. The moment he arrived, he saw the $2 million motorcycle parked in the yard. Ethan froze. Oh my God. He walked around the bike twice like someone who had never seen the world. His hands hovered in the air as he tried to touch it, but didn't dare. This was his dream bike. Only 3 existed in the world, and one of them had been bought by a top-tier billionaire in the country. No one knew who that billionaire was. The bike almost never appeared in public, yet one was now parked in his yard. If he could ride it even once, Ethan felt he would have no regrets left in life. He wondered if someone in the Swanson family had met some big shot. Suddenly he thought of Ryan. He figured only the Fosters could get their hands on this bike. The price was only $2 million, something many rich people could afford, but money alone wasn't enough since it was a limited edition. While Ethan stared at the bike with shining eyes, Nenah walked out of the house. "You like it?" she asked. Ethan nodded like crazy. "Like it? I'm in love with it." Nenah let out a small laugh, then tossed him a key and pointed at the motorcycle in the yard. "It's yours." Ethan's eyes widened. He stared at Nenah in disbelief. So excited his voice shook. The motorcycle is yours?" It wasn't his fault, he didn't know. The day Nenah returned, it had already been dark, and she had driven straight into the garage. She had ridden the motorcycle to the engagement party today as well, but she didn't leave with the Swansons and was the last to depart. So other than Martin, no one in the Swanson family had seen her ride it. Who else would it belong to? Nenah raised a brow. "Ryan gave it to you?" Ethan's first thought was that Ryan had bought it for her. Nenah rubbed her temples, speechless. "It's mine." Ethan nodded like he understood. "Right, what's Ryan's is yours." Nenah froze. Ethan leaned closer with a flattering smile. "Can I take it for a ride?" He hadn't taken Nenah's words about giving him the bike seriously. He just assumed Ryan had given it to her. In his mind, Nenah's cold attitude toward Ryan today was nothing more than a minor spat between a couple. They'd probably make up any day. If Ryan found out Nenah gave away something he bought for her, he would probably lose his mind again. With that thought, Ethan didn't plan to accept the bike. Riding it once would already make his life complete. "I told you it's yours. Ride it however you want." Nenah held out her hand. "Give me your bike key." "What?" Ethan was completely stunned. "You really want to give it to me? This bike is worth $2 million. Is $2 million a lot?" Nenah asked. She had never cared how much money was in her bank account because there was too much of it. Ethan looked even more shocked. "Do you even know what you're talking about?" The Swanson family did have money, but even for them, $2 million was not something they could throw around casually. If the rest of the family heard Nenah talking like this, they would blow up, Ethan thought. Girls with rich boyfriends are truly different. Nenah answered seriously, Yes, I know." Ethan was speechless. He felt Nenah was still the same as when she was little, a bit clueless. Nenah checked the time and frowned. "Give me your keys. I need to pick someone up." Now, Ethan was sure she wasn't joking. He asked hesitantly, "Are you sure you want my crappy car? It's only worth $60,000. Nenah glanced at the car parked by the gate. It was the only cheap vehicle in the entire Swanson family. "It's pretty junky, but it'll do. I'm only using it once. I'll have someone send over another one of these tomorrow." Ethan could hardly believe his ears. Only now did he realize Nenah actually owned 2 bikes like this. He couldn't even dream of owning a motorcycle like that. Yet she had 2. And from the way she talked, getting another one was no different from buying groceries. Ethan wondered if Nenah had really been raised by a nightclub hostess. Do nightclub hostesses earn that much? He even thought about asking one day if nightclubs hired men. If making money there was that easy, he might give it a try. Nenah had no idea what Ethan was thinking. She grabbed his keys and headed out. But the moment she reached the door, the Swansons all returned. The moment Vivian saw Nenah, the anger she'd been holding back the whole ride burst out. "Nenah, you ungrateful brat. I'm teaching you a lesson today." Vivian raised her hand to slap her. Nenah was about to lift her leg to kick her, but Ethan was even faster. Ethan grabbed Vivian's wrist and threw it back. "Didn't you make enough of a scene at the party? Try laying a hand on Nenah again." Vivian had held in her rage all day, and now Ethan dared to talk to her like that. Her anger spiked immediately. She slapped him hard across the face. "You don't get to speak here," she yelled. You're just like Nenah, both of you worthless losers. If I'd known this, I should have strangled you to death the moment you were born, so you wouldn't go against me every chance you get." Nenah narrowed her eyes and tilted her head slightly. The look she gave Vivian filled with fury. But before she could act, Ethan grabbed her arm and shook his head. He bit down on his lip and let out a cold laugh. "You really should have done that." Vivian frowned. "What?" Ethan sneered. "If you had, you would have spent the rest of your life in prison, and Nenah wouldn't have been abandoned by you." Vivian's face turned pale. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Ethan let out a mocking laugh. "What goes around comes around. Don't think no one knows what you've done. You're a professor. Did it never cross your mind that the lies you made up didn't make any sense?" "Shut up," Vivian snapped. "I don't want to talk about this right now." Ethan took a step forward until he was only inches away from her. "Feeling guilty?" Vivian looked uneasy. "Why would I?" "You just like to argue." Ethan didn't want to waste more words on her. "I won't hold it against you for slapping me earlier, but I'm warning you, don't touch Nenah again. Otherwise, if I accidentally let your little secret slip, things might get ugly." Before Vivian could respond, Ethan continued, "Try me if you don't believe it. I want to see if you're brave enough to gamble your reputation for Lily." Vivian stared hard at Ethan, a flash of venom crossing her eyes. "You're threatening me? Have you thought about the consequences?" "What consequences?" Ethan sneered. "You planning to do what you did before? Lock Nenah and me in that dark room again? Shock us? Whip us? Or force us to eat dead rats? I survived all of that. What else do you think I can't take?" Nenah glanced at Ethan, pressed her lips together, and said nothing. Vivian clenched her fists tightly. The tension froze the room. After a long moment, she shot Ethan a hard glare and then turned and walked away without saying a word. She didn't speak because she didn't know what to say. She hated Nenah, this daughter with a defective mind. She wanted Nenah gone from this world entirely. Vivian knew the lies she had spun after sending Nenah away had plenty of holes. Some family members believed them, some didn't, but she didn't care. All that mattered was that Nenah was gone. Most importantly, Vivian glanced at Lily beside her and thought, "I will not allow anyone to take anything away from Lily." After Vivian left, Ethan rubbed his slightly swollen cheek from where he had just been hit. Nenah cast him a sidelong glance. Her voice carried no emotion. "Why did you stop me?" If Ethan hadn't intervened, she really would have kicked Vivian right then. Ethan let out a wry smile. "She's still our mom. It'd be easy to hit her, but you can't handle the consequences." He had known Nenah's fiery temper since they were kids. She was someone who could never tolerate even a little loss. If he hadn't stopped her, she would have seriously hurt Vivian. He wasn't worried about Vivian getting hurt. He was worried about the social backlash if Nenah hit Vivian. No one knew what Vivian had done to them, but if they attacked her, the story of children beating their mother would spread across the internet instantly. Nenah had just come back. He didn't want her carrying that stigma. Nenah frowned but stayed silent. She never cared about her reputation, and originally she had no intention of returning to this house. It was Scarlet, for some unknown reason, who insisted on helping her find her family. Scarlet was the one who let the Swanson family realize that Lily wasn't James's daughter. Scarlet also delivered Nenah's DNA test results to the Swanson residence. From there, it naturally led the Swansons to her. At first, Nenah blamed Scarlet, but Scarlet had said there would always be family members missing her. So Nenah returned to the Swanson family, for Sarah, for Ethan, and also to get back at Vivian. From the very beginning, she never planned to go easy on Vivian. Even if Vivian was her mother, Nenah felt she didn't deserve mercy. Still, Nenah hadn't forgotten that Ethan and Sarah had always tried to protect her. She wasn't ungrateful. But Ethan shot Nenah a wicked grin. "We may not be able to beat the hell out of our mom, but pulling a few pranks, totally fair game." Nenah lifted a brow. Ethan leaned in closer. "Did you forget? After she forced us to eat dead rats when we were kids, you spat in her bowl." Nenah went silent. She wouldn't do the stupid things she'd done as a kid anymore. These days, if she could solve something with her fists, she definitely wouldn't waste time talking. Still, just because she wouldn't do it didn't mean someone else couldn't. Nenah looked straight at Ethan, a mischievous smile spreading across her face. "You're doing it?" "Of course it's the punk of the family doing it," Ethan smirked proudly. "Just watch me." "Go for it," Nenah said seriously, then walked away. Upstairs in the villa, Sarah watched Nenah's retreating figure with a gentle, loving smile. She then turned to the butler, Bill Miller. "Bill, help me to my room." Bill glanced at Sarah's face and chuckled. "You seem to be in a particularly good mood today, ma'am." "Of course," Sarah replied. "I used to think that all those years outside would have softened Nenah's temperament, but now she's even more decisive than before. That's a good thing. I'll never have to worry about her being bullied again." Bill smiled. "Mrs. Swanson, you care about Nenah so much. I bet the other kids at home might be a little jealous." Sarah snorted lightly. "I treat every child in this family the same. It's true that I took care of Nenah the most when she was little, so maybe I do love her a bit more, but that's only because she's always been considerate and sensible. You can't call that favoritism." "Yes, ma'am," Bill said, following her lead. "You're always fair." In truth, Sarah was fair with her grandchildren, but only when they were kids. When they grew up, she knew their personalities well. The kind-hearted, the schemers, she could tell them apart at a glance. After joking with Bill for a moment, Sarah's expression turned serious. "Any progress on the investigation?" Bill's expression mirrored her seriousness. "No results yet. Up to today, I've checked every corner of Riverdale, Celestra, every small town, every lead, but I still haven't found anything about Lily's real parents. Next, I plan to check Lismere." Sarah removed the rosary beads from her wrist and rolled them gently between her fingers. "Be thorough. Leave no clue behind, not a single thread." "Yes, ma'am," Bill replied. He hesitated a moment, then added, "And if I do find her parents, do we send her away?" "Of course we send her away," Sarah said, glancing at him sharply. "Do you think I'm being heartless, even though Lily's been with us all these years?" "No," Bill said. "You've been running the Swanson family for so long. I'm not questioning your judgment. Lily's intentions have always been written on her face. I can see that she's no good. I'm just saying, sending her away might be hard to explain to Vivian." Sarah's fingers paused over the rosary beads. She put them down, her voice icy. "Vivian will have to think about how she's going to explain it to me first." Bill froze. "What do you mean? Tell me, why does Vivian favor Lily so much when Lily isn't even her daughter? Just because of that ridiculous high IQ?" Sarah sneered. "Lily's IQ is barely 150. Compared to a true genius, it's nothing." "That's true," Bill said. "Ethan's IQ is 180, yet Vivian never doted on him like she does Lily. She spent a fortune raising her all these years." He shook his head. "If we hadn't done a DNA test for Lily and Vivian, I'd honestly think Lily was Vivian's daughter." Bill wasn't overthinking it. If not for the DNA test, anyone seeing Vivian's doting on Lily would assume she was the real daughter, not Nenah. But the truth was, Nenah was Vivian's daughter, and Lily had no blood relation with Vivian. Bill still couldn't figure it out why Vivian loved Lily so much. Sarah sneered. "I never believe in favoritism without a reason. Vivian's obsession with Lily must have a reason behind it. As for what that reason is, we'll have to find out ourselves. For instance, how did Vivian even come across Lily back then? Where exactly did she take her abroad? And how did she manage to make Lily imitate Nenah so perfectly?" If Lily hadn't resembled Nenah so closely, Sarah would have long suspected she wasn't her granddaughter. Nenah had always lived with Sarah as a child, so Sarah knew her temperament and character inside out. But ever since Vivian took her daughter abroad without telling Sarah, the girl hadn't been as close to Sarah. Even though she wasn't as close, she still retained some old habits. Sarah had assumed it was because her granddaughter had spent a few years overseas and had grown distant. That was until the truth about Lily not being James's daughter came to light. It was a sudden discovery made during a routine medical checkup. The Swansons had annual medical exams. Blood types had never been an issue before, but a few months ago, Lily's report showed she was type O. James was type A, and Vivian was AB. It was impossible for them to have a child with type O blood. Sarah immediately went to the hospital to verify, and the results confirmed it. Lily truly had type O blood. As for why previous reports had listed AB, the hospital suggested that someone might have tampered with them. Investigations were ongoing, but so far, nothing had been concluded. Since then, Sarah finally understood the mystery that had plagued her for years. Her granddaughter hadn't grown distant because of a few years abroad. She had been switched. Vivian's claim that the children had been swapped at birth was laughable. If that were true, Sarah would never have spent all those years with Nenah. She knew her years with Nenah before she was 6 had been real, not some dream. When Nenah was finally brought back, the granddaughter she had loved since childhood stood before her, and Sarah felt something undeniable. That was the bond of blood. Her granddaughter was irreplaceable by anyone. Vivian's explanation was full of holes, and her way of protecting Lily only fueled Sarah's doubts. Sarah suspected that Lily might be the child of Vivian and someone else, which was why she secretly conducted a DNA test. The results proved Lily wasn't Vivian's child. Right now, only by finding Lily's parents could they understand what Vivian truly intended. "You don't need to worry," Bill said, noticing the anger in Sarah's eyes. "I'll personally oversee all of this. You can trust me." Sarah's anger subsided a little. "Keep a close eye on Vivian. Lily didn't get engaged to Ryan, and I'm worried Vivian might do something to Nenah again." "Understood," Bill replied. Ryan's parents and grandparents went back to the foster residence with cold faces, and Ryan followed behind them wearing the same gloomy look. Grace, Ryan's mother, glanced back at him and finally couldn't hold it in. She burst out laughing. "Honey, I really regret not taking a picture of our son's pathetic face at the engagement party," she told Ryan's father, Charles. Then she gave Ryan another mocking look. "Look at that blank face. Sometimes I wonder if I actually had twins. The pathetic guy in front of Nenah must be the other son I hid somewhere." Ryan shot her a glance and walked straight to the couch. He sat down, crossed his legs, and asked calmly, "You don't want your perfume anymore?" Grace's smile froze. Then she grabbed Charles's arm and whined, "Honey, you need to do something about your son." Charles patted her hand, his eyes full of affection. "If he refuses to buy it for you, I'll beat him." "Beat me?" Ryan smiled. "Dad, are you sure you can beat me up?" Charles stiffened, looking a little embarrassed. "What, you planning to hit your old man now?" "No." Ryan's expression stayed flat. "But if you try to beat me, I might not be able to get my hands on Nice's wine." Charles went quiet. His son was as infuriating as ever. He was only in his early 50s, but he had retired early. With nothing much to do, drinking had become his biggest hobby. Nisa was a well-known winemaker in the country. His wines weren't as expensive as those foreign luxury brands, but they tasted great. Ryan had managed to get Charles 2 bottles before. Charles only allowed himself a tiny sip each day, and even drinking that slowly, he had finished them not long ago. He had finally convinced Ryan to get him a few more bottles, but he didn't expect Ryan to use that to threaten him. Maria and Zachary rolled their eyes the moment they saw Ryan's blank face. They had no idea who he took after. He was cold all day long, as if everyone owed him money. If he had always been like that, his family wouldn't have felt anything. But in front of Nenah, he was just a man hopelessly in love. Maybe she was the only one who could make him go out of character. Maria walked over and kicked Ryan's leg. "Sit properly." Then she sat beside him and asked, "What's going on between you and Nenah?" "She's my girlfriend." Ryan couldn't help smiling the moment he mentioned Nenah. Maria couldn't take another look at her pathetic grandson. Grace even turned her head away just to avoid getting mad at Ryan. "If she's your girlfriend, why didn't you bring her home earlier? Why let things turn into this mess? Thank God Sarah and I are friends, or I wouldn't even know how to apologize." Maria smacked Ryan on the shoulder, furious. "Stop being such a troublemaker." Ryan straightened up, looking serious. "I should remind you that you engaged me to someone else without my consent. You violated my legal rights." "Hey, you little brat." Maria slapped him again before he could finish. "What, you planning to send me to jail now?" "According to the law, a serious case like this can lead to up to 3 years in prison," Ryan said evenly. Maria glared at him. "Like it's not your fault. You never come home and you never answer my calls. If you had shown your face even once, I wouldn't have rushed to set up an engagement with Lily." She sighed. "Anyway, the problem now is that you might not be able to marry Nenah. Judging by how she looked today, she had no intention of staying with you. And Sarah really loves that girl. From the way she talked, she doesn't want Nenah marrying you either. Maria looked worried, but inside she was secretly pleased. Ryan was too arrogant and never cared about anyone, and now someone finally put him in his place. The only issue was that Nenah didn't want to marry him. Ryan gave Maria a sideways look. You pissed her off. You go bring her back. Maria got angry. What are you talking about? How is it my fault she left? If you hadn't arranged that engagement, would she have misunderstood and thought I was cheating? Ryan rubbed his temples at the thought. He had been accused out of nowhere, and he didn't even have a chance to explain. Nenah wouldn't listen to a word he said. If he chased her too hard, she would just start swinging, and he couldn't bring himself to fight back. Maria had nothing to say for a moment. It did seem like she was the reason Nenah dumped Ryan. Ryan stood up. Figure out a way to bring Nenah back to me. If she doesn't come back, don't expect to get anything you want from me. Nenah went to the airport. She had just reached the arrivals area when a girl came flying toward her like a gust of wind. Nenah, I missed you so much. Her voice immediately drew a bunch of curious looks. Suddenly, someone let out a sharp gasp. Linnell? Oh my God, it is Linnell. She's even prettier in person. I need a picture. I have to record this moment. A picture? Getting her autograph is way more important. Within seconds, people in the airport went wild and started chasing after Linnell. Meanwhile, Linnell was being held in place by Nenah, who had her hand on her head. Linnell tried to throw her arms around Nenah, but couldn't, and her face twisted into pure frustration. After several failed attempts to hug her, Linnell stomped her foot. Nenah, you're so heartless. We haven't seen each other in ages, and you won't even let me hug you? You put on perfume, Nenah said helplessly. Linnell huffed. I only used a tiny bit. I had an event, so I had no choice. As soon as it ended, I rushed here to see you, and you're seriously being this heartless? Nenah shook her head. No hugging. You're so petty, Linnell muttered, though she didn't force it. Nenah had a strange habit. She hated touching anyone who wore perfume, the way someone with OCD might avoid anything dirty. She didn't mind being near people who wore fragrance, but hugging them was out of the question. If her clothes picked up a scent, she would throw the entire outfit away on the spot. Nenah reached for Linnell's suitcase and gave her a quick look, signaling her to look behind them. Linnell turned around and saw a crowd of people staring at them, wide-eyed, mouths hanging open, completely stunned. Linnell panicked instantly. She did not want anyone seeing her like this. She grabbed Nenah and rushed out of the airport. It wasn't until they completely disappeared that Linnell's fans snapped out of it. What did I just see? Did Linnell just smile and act cute? At a girl? Am I hallucinating? You're not. I saw it too. Was that really Linnell? Or someone who just looks like her? No need to panic. It was her. Yes, we saw a side of Linnell no one knew existed. Linnell was famous for being a cold beauty. She also had a strange temper. Anyone who crossed her would get cursed out right then and there. Getting yelled at was nothing. The real danger was that she would throw punches without blinking. There had once been a spoiled rich kid who took an interest in her. He was dumb enough to bet he could sleep with her. In the end, she left him seriously disabled down there. Everyone thought Linnell would be in huge trouble. But to their shock, the very next day, the rich guy's father dragged him out to apologize to Linnell in public. Not only that, the father even broke his son's leg on the spot. From that day on, no one dared to mess with Linnell. Everyone knew she was a rose with thorns. But just now, Linnell not only smiled at a girl, she even tried to hug her. It was unbelievable. Meanwhile, a car sped down the highway. Nenah, when did your taste get this bad? Driving such a beat-up car, Linnell complained from the passenger seat, looking around with obvious disdain. Nenah shot her a sidelong glance. This is my brother's car. It's probably the most valuable thing he owns. Linnell raised her eyebrows in surprise. Your brother is that poor? Should I give him some money? Excuse me? You think I don't have money? Nenah rolled her eyes. Linnell shrugged. Then why don't you give it to him? You're so rich. You can't just let your brother struggle. I'll do it later, Nenah said. If I give it to him now, he probably wouldn't even take it. If Ethan could hear her now, He would be shocked, and he'd probably insist on taking her money in a heartbeat. "Fine," Linnell said, finally dropping the disdainful look. "Since it's your brother's car, I won't complain. But next time you can't pick me up in such a beat-up car. I'm not used to it." Nenah tilted her head. "Next time? How long are you staying here?" "Let's see," Linnell muttered, leaning back in her seat, clearly in a bad mood. "Anyway, going back would be boring." Nenah noticed her friend's mood. She lowered her eyes and asked, "Did you fight with your family again?" "Fight?" Linnell snorted. "It's only me hitting them. If they want to go toe-to-toe with me, they've got a few years of training to do first." Nenah smirked. "Good. Even if you can't beat them, I've got your back." "I knew you'd always be the best to me, Nenah," Linnell said, hugging Nenah's arm and nuzzling her. Nenah smiled, her eyes soft with affection. Linnell's real name was Elaine Sinclair. She was the daughter of the Sinclair family, one of Seabridge's prominent dynasties. Nenah and Elaine had never crossed paths before. They only became friends because of a fight a few years back. A hostess at a nightclub in Seabridge was being bullied, and Elaine stepped in to help her. When Nenah arrived, she didn't see the bullies. All she saw was Elaine throwing a stack of cash at the hostess and scowling, telling her to go change her clothes. Thinking Elaine was causing trouble, Nenah beat her up. Elaine, who wasn't her match, sat on the ground crying loudly, complaining that she'd been trying to help and had gotten hit instead. Nenah felt guilty, so she bought Elaine drinks to apologize. Strangely enough, two strangers with no prior connection became fast friends that day. Elaine was an eccentric girl. Once she decided someone was a friend, she clung to them relentlessly. 8 months out of the year, she would fly to Riverdale to spend time with Nenah and Scarlet. Nenah drove to Elaine's place in Riverdale. The villa was well kept, with a housekeeper cleaning it regularly, so it looked tidy. Still, Elaine didn't like it. "Can't I just stay at your place? This dump is way too quiet," she complained. Nenah tapped her on the forehead. "My place isn't convenient. I'll come here when I'm free." Elaine brightened immediately. "So you'll keep me company for a few days? I haven't seen you in forever. I just want to stick close to you." "Wait for a few days," Nenah said. "I've got to go to the office tomorrow. Some stuff to handle." "Then I'll come with you," Elaine offered. "Fine," Nenah agreed. Nenah didn't return to the Swanson residence until after dinner with Elaine. When she got home, everyone was still waiting for her and hadn't eaten. The moment Vivian saw her, a surge of anger flared up. "Where are your manners? You just came back and ran off like that, making the whole family wait for dinner. I know you can't learn anything good from that hostess, but surely you understand basic courtesy. I remember teaching you when you were a child." Perhaps because she had been stewing over Nenah these past few days, Vivian didn't even notice the contradiction in her own words. She had insisted to the Swansons that Nenah and Lily had been switched at birth. Yet now she claimed she had taught Nenah proper manners. The Swansons were smart, but they just exchanged a glance without exposing Vivian's lie. Sarah's face darkened. She was about to scold Vivian when Nenah spoke up. "Scarlet is better than you. At least when I was out on the streets, forced to survive by scavenging through garbage for food, she gave me something to eat. She even sent me to school and protected me when those men had bad intentions. And you?" Nenah fixed Vivian with a cold stare and sneered. "You're saying that I have no manners?" Says the one who yells at elders in public, forces her 6-year-old daughter to eat dead rats, and constantly calls her daughter a little bitch? This was probably the longest Nenah had spoken since coming back, and every word dripped with contempt and mockery toward Vivian. Her disdain was woven through every sentence. Vivian, being a professor, understood every word. Her anger boiled over immediately. She slammed the table and stood up. "Nenah?" Nenah casually flicked her ear. "Mrs. Swanson, what happened to your manners?" "You." Vivian's face contorted. She couldn't calm down, and she had no way to release her anger. Watching this, Sarah and Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They thought a mean woman like Vivian deserved to be put in her place by Nenah, and they enjoyed seeing her face twist with fury. But what Sarah felt most was a pang of worry for Nenah. She hadn't realized how badly Nenah had suffered all those years. Her precious granddaughter, whom she loved so much, had been forced to scavenge through garbage just to survive. If it hadn't been for Scarlet, Nenah might not even be alive today. Thinking of that, Sarah felt even more grateful to Scarlet and resolved to find a way to thank her properly. "Nenah, you don't have to be so hostile toward Mom," Lily said gently. "You weren't with her all these years, and she just doesn't know how to." Before she could finish, Nenah suddenly turned her head. "What, are you going to lecture me?" Lily's words caught in her throat. She had seen Martin get kicked and spit blood by Nenah while trying to lecture her. Nenah was practically insane. Lily worried that if she said one more word, she might get kicked too. So she fell silent. Martin, sitting nearby with bandages wrapped around him, was about to speak when he caught Nenah's lightly floating glance directed at him. He decisively lowered his head and kept eating. His injuries weren't healed yet, and he didn't want to risk getting a new one. Nenah was satisfied and walked straight over to sit beside Sarah. She had already eaten, so she didn't want anything to eat, but she obediently stayed to keep Sarah company at the table. After dinner, James, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke up. SN Corporation just launched a new project, worth $300 million. If we can land it, the Swanson family's position in Riverdale will rise even higher. But SN Corporation has very high standards. Our company has submitted more than a dozen proposals, all of them rejected. Does anyone here have a better plan? Hearing this, Martin lowered his head. The Swanson family had long wanted to cooperate with SN Corporation, but whether it was small projects in the past or this massive $300 million deal, every proposal they submitted was returned without approval. Martin had spent a whole month working overtime to create what he believed was a perfect plan. But the SN Corporation executive barely glanced at it for 2 minutes before dismissing it as unoriginal and worthless. It was a huge blow to Martin. James was very serious about this project. After seeing Martin's repeated rejections, he had grown disappointed and was now considering passing the project to someone else in the family. Whoever landed this contract would get the director position at the company. Martin had worked hard for years and was still just a department manager. He wanted another chance, but James wasn't giving him one. SN Corporation? Nenah leaned back in her chair, her voice laced with interest. Sarah glanced at her. "Nenah, do you want to give it a try?" "Her?" Vivian scoffed. "Sarah, are you out of your mind? Someone like Nenah, raised by a hostess at a nightclub and never even finishing high school, making a plan for a $300 million project? Our family has already submitted more than a dozen proposals, all rejected. You want her to send in some trash and completely ruin our chances?" Sarah's face darkened instantly. Sensing her grandmother's displeasure, Lily quickly said, "Grandma, I know you care about Nenah, but this isn't a joke. This is about the company's future. We can't afford to let anyone make mistakes. Let her try on a smaller project next time." Sarah remained expressionless and didn't reply. Lily turned to James with a smile. "Dad, I just graduated high school, but Mom has had teachers giving me business courses since I was little. I can try this proposal." Ethan scoffed. "Nenah can't afford to make mistakes, but you can?" "Lily, don't you think you're being a little arrogant?" Lily looked a bit hurt. "Ethan, I'm not looking down on Nenah, and I don't intend to make a mistake. I just watched Martin while he worked on the plan, and I think I have a chance. Besides, I've learned more business knowledge than Nenah. This is a $300 million project. We can't just let Nenah play around with it, can we?" Ethan was about to retort when Lily continued, "I don't know what I've done to make you dislike me all this time, but you have to believe my intentions are always for the good of our whole family." She looked like she was about to cry, and Vivian immediately felt her heart ache. She barked angrily, "Ethan, have you had enough of this? Nenah could never compete with Lily. Don't think just because you're my son you can bully Lily." Ethan was about to retort when Sarah suddenly slammed her hand on the table. "Enough," she bellowed. The entire villa fell silent. Sarah shot everyone present a displeased glance and said coldly, "Since this project is crucial to the Swanson family, it shouldn't fall on just one person. All my grandchildren, whether capable or not, must contribute a proposal. The Swanson family's honor and reputation belong to all of us, not just one person. Do you understand?" "Yes," the other grandchildren replied happily. They weren't as accomplished as James's children. Good opportunities had always favored James's family. Now everyone getting to contribute a proposal meant they were finally being noticed. Only Lily kept her head down, fists clenched. She knew very well that Sarah didn't want her to hog all the credit. If she submitted a proposal alone, she might have landed the project and claimed all the honor for herself. But now, with everyone contributing, the credit would belong to all of them, no matter whose plan was chosen. Lily silently complained that Sarah was being unfair. "Nenah," Sarah said, holding Nina's hand with a gentle smile, "it's okay if you don't understand much about business. Just watch and learn from everyone. I just want you to have something to do." Sarah's attitude toward Nenah made her other grandchildren green with envy, but no one dared to speak up. Nenah paused for a moment before asking, "Grandma, you want our family to get this project, right?" "Of course," Sarah said. $300 million isn't a small sum. Even though our family is wealthy, we still need better projects to strengthen our position. But don't feel pressured. Just treat this as a learning opportunity. It's okay if you can't submit a proposal. Just watch and learn. Soon, I'll arrange a job for you at the company. As long as I'm around, you have a home." Nenah felt a warmth in her chest and smiled. "Then this project belongs to the Swanson family." "What?" Sarah blinked in surprise. "I'm giving this $300 million project to our family," Nenah said. "Grandma, whatever you want, I'll give it to you." "Nenah, what are you talking about?" Vivian was utterly stunned. SN Corporation is one of the top international conglomerates. You think this project is yours to hand out? Who do you think you are, the president of SN Corporation? Nenah leaned back in her chair, her voice lazily calm. "Exactly. I am the president of SN Corporation." After Nenah spoke, the Swansons fell into a brief, stunned silence. Everyone stared at her like she'd lost her mind. No one expected Nenah to boldly claim she was the president of SN Corporation. Some of them even started to wonder if she actually knew what kind of company SN Corporation really was. SN Corporation was one of the world's top conglomerates, completely out of reach for ordinary people. Not just the Swanson family, even the elite Foster family in Betrico couldn't hope to touch SN Corporation. How could Nenah be so arrogant, pretending to be the president of SN Corporation? Was she insane? The Swansons thought. After a long silence, Vivian was the first to snap back. She was furious. "Nenah, what on earth are you thinking? How dare you say you're the president of SN Corporation? Aren't you afraid they'll send a lawyer after you?" Lily chuckled lightly. "Nenah, I know you just got back and you're eager to prove yourself to the family, but there's no need to invent such a ridiculous lie. Lots of people never get a chance to meet the president of SN Corporation. Dad has tried countless times, and the answer has always been no." She shot a glance at Nenah, her eyes full of sarcasm. "If you want to learn about business, I can teach you. But stop saying things like that. If someone with bad intentions hears it, the president really could hold us responsible." Nenah crossed her arms, smiling faintly as she glanced at Lily, then looked at James. "Dad, you wanted to see me? Well, I'm right here. What is it? If it's not too unreasonable, I might just agree, seeing as I'm your daughter." James, Vivian, and Lily all went silent, thinking she must be addicted to performing. They had all told her to stop exaggerating, yet she kept going. Even Sarah and Ethan, who usually adored Nenah, were left wide-eyed, speechless. The room fell into an awkward stillness. After a long pause, Sarah cleared her throat and spoke carefully. "Nenah, I know you want to do something for our family. I'm already very happy that you came back and are here with me. Just don't say things like that again." She wasn't scolding Nenah. She just didn't want anyone with ill intentions in the family to use Nenah's words against her. If anyone spread this around, the president of SN Corporation could really come after her. Ethan finally regained his composure. He tugged lightly on Nenah's sleeve and whispered, "Nenah, I know Ryan loves you and would give you anything you want, but even Ryan can't control SN Corporation's decisions. Be careful what you say." Nenah said seriously, "I'm telling the truth." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just wanted her to stop talking before the real president of SN Corporation heard it and embarrassed her. He did want to protect Nenah, but he was no match for the president of SN Corporation. "Enough," James shot a glance at Nenah. I don't care who you were before. Now that you're a Swanson, you need to watch your words and behavior. Don't tell such lies anymore." Lily glanced at Nenah and smirked. James had never cared about any of his kids. No matter what they said or did, he would usually just ignore it. His eyes only lit up for anything that could bring him a benefit. Only children who could give him an advantage earned a second glance. Nenah was the first of James's children to actually get scolded. That made Lily feel pretty pleased. She turned to James with a determined tone. "Dad, don't worry. I'm confident about this proposal. I'll go to SN Corporation tomorrow and try to get a meeting with the president." James gave her a sideways glance, his face still icy. "Anyone can talk big. I want results." Lily's expression stiffened. "Okay, I'll make sure it succeeds." Sarah glanced at Lily, clearly displeased. She had never liked Lily much. Lily wore her ambition and calculation on her face. If Lily really managed to secure SN Corporation's project, Sarah would have a hard time keeping her in check. But this project was crucial for the Swanson family. Lily had been the focus of Vivian's careful grooming since childhood. She had a fair shot at landing this deal, which meant Sarah had no choice but to let her try. Just thinking about it gave Sarah a headache. Nenah noticed Sarah's tension and held her hand. "Grandma, don't worry. Tomorrow, I'll get the contract into your hands." Sarah patted Nenah's hand and gave a faint, bitter smile, saying nothing. She trusted that if Nenah hadn't been abandoned by Vivian all those years ago, she'd have grown into an exceptional person by now, and wouldn't have to tell these lies just to make her happy. She knew Nenah meant well and didn't want to crush her intention. Whatever. As long as Nenah is happy, Sarah thought to herself. The dinner had been unusually tense. Sarah, in a foul mood, went upstairs right after finishing her meal. Vivian, irritated by Nenah's presence, grabbed her bag and left. James didn't want to talk to any of his kids, so he went to the study. Nenah didn't want to stay either. Just as she was about to leave, someone tugged at her sleeve. She turned and saw her cousin Hazel, looking nervous, holding out a painting. "Nenah, welcome home. This is a gift for you." Nenah took the painting, a little surprised. Hazel had actually painted her. In the painting, Nenah wore a tight leather outfit, her long hair flowing behind her. She stood beneath a tree, moonlight falling over her, giving her an alluring yet mysterious aura. Nenah had seen plenty of good art. Hazel's painting wasn't exceptional, but it had a strong mood and plenty of potential. I didn't do well." "Nenah, please don't mind it," Hazel said softly. "I just really wanted to give you a gift, and this is all I could offer. If you don't like it, you can just throw it away." Nenah looked up at Hazel. Hazel was her cousin, the daughter of her aunt Joanna, a year younger than her. Joanna had once been an A-list movie star, later marrying a wealthy man from Cloudport, and she retired from acting afterward. Joanna had a son and a daughter. She had expected a happy life after marriage, but in reality, it had been full of hardship. Her mother-in-law insisted on strict rules and demanded that Joanna handle all household chores herself. Her husband only gave her $6,000 a month for living expenses. Worse, her son looked down on her for being an incompetent housewife. Joanna and Hazel had lived in constant struggle in that house. Nenah remembered that whenever Joanna visited the Swanson residence when she was a child, her face always carried a trace of sadness. She rarely spoke to the family, so Nenah had never been close to her. But Hazel had always loved following Nenah around, wanting to play with her. After Nenah had been abandoned by Vivian, she occasionally thought of Hazel, though not often. She had been closer to Ethan in her childhood. Returning to the Swanson residence this time, Nenah had already noticed Joanna and Hazel. She hadn't looked deeply into Joanna's situation, only catching bits from Ethan. Joanna's husband had apparently kicked her and Hazel out of their home, leaving only their son behind. With nowhere else to go, Joanna had returned to the Swanson residence. But life here wasn't easy either. She endured constant mockery from her sisters-in-law. Joanna had thought about being an actress again, but her place in showbiz had long since disappeared. Nenah looked back at Hazel and offered a faint smile. "You did really well." Hazel's eyes lit up. "Really?" Nenah nodded and patted Hazel's shoulder. "But you didn't observe closely enough, and the character isn't lively enough. I was standing under the tree holding a bottle of wine." "I'll paint it again." Hazel said happily, running off to start another painting. Nenah watched her retreating figure and chuckled softly. Not far away, Lily saw the scene. A flash of malice crossed her eyes. She thought, that bitch Hazel is usually so quiet in front of me, and now she is trying to be Nenah's sidekick. Does she really think she can earn a better life by sucking up to Nenah? Lily decided she would teach Hazel a lesson. She wouldn't let go of anyone who treated Nenah nicely. The next morning, Nenah ran into Lily and Martin just as they were heading out to SN Corporation. Nenah was wearing a red dress with her hair down. The clean lines showed off her figure perfectly, giving her a graceful look with a hint of sensuality. Lily's eyes dropped to the dress, and a flash of jealousy crossed her face. It was a Linnell piece. When Linnell had posted the sketch online, she'd written, "For my bestie only." People had gone crazy with envy, complaining about why they weren't lucky enough to have a friend like Linnell. Yet the one wearing that exclusive not-for-sale dress was Nenah. Every time Lily remembered Linnell saying all of Nenah's clothes were custom-made for her, something twisted in her chest. She couldn't understand why Nenah was so lucky that she could be friends with Linnell. She couldn't understand what Linnell saw in a girl raised by a nightclub hostess. After all, Linnell was a rich heiress and a talented designer. Martin had also noticed the dress. His expression darkened. "We get it. You're close with Linnell. You don't have to show off like this." He was worried Lily would lose face. Nenah shot him a look and walked toward him. Martin instinctively stepped back. "What are you doing?" Nenah let out a soft, mocking laugh. "You think a coward like you can lecture me? Martin, come back when you're brave enough to stand your ground." She didn't spare him another glance and walked away. Martin seethed, jaw tight with anger. He truly hated Nenah. If she stayed in this house, he'd lose his mind sooner or later. He had to find a way to drive her out of the Swanson family. Lily was furious too, but she knew it wasn't the time to show it. She said to Martin, "Let's go. The president of SN Corporation is meeting us today. We can't be late." Neither of them had expected this. After only one night, the president's assistant had called, saying the president wanted to meet them in person. Lily had been so excited she couldn't sleep at all. To impress the president, she spent the entire night working through plan after plan until she finally came up with one she felt confident about. She was certain today would be her day. After arriving at SN Corporation, Lily and Martin were led straight to the president's office. Brian Shaw, the president's assistant, was cold and distant. "Wait here." With that, he turned and left, giving Lily no chance to ask any questions. So Lily and Martin were left standing in the president's office. For a full 2 hours, they stood there obediently. Lily was wearing 4-inch heels, and her legs were starting to go weak. She could hardly keep standing. "Martin, should we go ask Mr. Shaw something?" "I'm exhausted," she said. Martin glanced at her heels with concern. "Why don't we sit for a bit? The president might be in a meeting." He was feeling it too. At the office, he rarely walked, and at home, he barely exercised. After standing for over 2 hours, his head was starting to feel dizzy. But he didn't dare ask Brian. This meeting with the president of SN Corporation was a rare opportunity. Neither he nor Lily knew if the president was deliberately testing them, so they couldn't take the risk of asking. Lily hesitated, then said, "Okay, let's sit for 10 minutes. I really can't stand any longer." She knew it wasn't appropriate to sit before the president arrived, but she was at her limit. After all, they had already waited more than 2 hours. They figured the president wouldn't be there within 10 minutes anyway. Martin nodded and let Lily sit on one of the guest chairs across from the president's desk. But barely a minute after she sat down, the office door suddenly swung open. Lily jumped in fright. She scrambled to her feet, but in her hurry, she twisted her ankle. Pain shot through her, and tears welled up in her eyes. Then she saw who it was. She froze, unable to even pretend, and gasped, "Nenah, what are you doing here?" Martin also froze for a moment, then shouted angrily, "Who told you to come here? Get out now!" Nenah glanced at him without expression, and then sat down directly across from him in the president's designated chair. Martin's eyes widened and rage boiled over. "Nenah, are you out of your mind? That's the president's chair. If you want to play with fire, that's your business. But don't ruin this for us." Lily, equally frustrated, said, "Do you even know how rare this meeting with the president is? Our whole family's hopes are riding on this project. Nenah, even if you have some grudge against me, you can't joke around with the fate of the entire family." She took a deep breath. "The president of SN Corporation is coming any minute. Get out now before you ruin things." Nenah leaned lazily against the chair, casually surveying them with a faintly amused look. Before she could even speak, Martin bellowed, "We told you to get out. Do you hear me? Nenah, if you mess up this collaboration, I will never forgive you." Nenah crossed her arms, a sly smile tugging at her lips. "So tell me, what are you going to do with me?" Originally, she had no intention of taunting Martin and Lily today. Her real purpose for coming to the company was to reclaim Ryan's shares and terminate their business partnership. Since their breakup, Ryan was dead to Nenah. She wanted both him and herself to vanish completely from each other's worlds, so she planned to cut ties cleanly. However, ending things with Ryan wasn't that simple. SN Corporation had been co-founded by Nenah and Ryan. Nenah had contributed 70% of the funds, while Ryan held 30%. She had 100% of the decision-making power in the group, while he had only to follow orders. Since she and Ryan were now over, she needed to take back the shares in his hands. That was her real reason for coming today. As for the Swanson family collaboration, she had already instructed Brian to draft the contract last night. She had originally intended to deliver it straight to Sarah today, but then she remembered that Lily seemed very confident about her proposal. A playful thought suddenly struck her. Vivian prized Lily so highly and boasted about raising geniuses. Nenah was curious to see exactly how brilliant this so-called genius really was. "You," Martin fumed, but he knew there was nothing he could do. Nenah had Sarah's backing and Ryan as a powerful fiancé. Even if she really did mess up this collaboration, she wouldn't necessarily be kicked out of the Swanson family. But he couldn't take that risk. James was already disappointed in him. He needed this collaboration to secure his position in the company. Thinking this, Martin took a deep breath and forced himself to speak calmly. "Could you please just leave? This opportunity is really important to me. I'm begging you. Please don't mess things up." Nenah raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you want me to leave?" "Yes, just go," Martin practically yelled. He kept glancing toward the office door like a man on the verge of madness, afraid the president might suddenly walk in. Nenah smiled. "Fine, I'll go." Martin didn't expect her to be so easy to persuade. He froze for a moment, but halfway out the door, Nenah stopped abruptly and added, "Martin, even with an IQ of 180, you're still an idiot." Martin's face fell. He was about to snap when Lily suddenly grabbed his sleeve and shook her head. Therefore, Martin took a deep breath and forced down the anger boiling in his chest. In the end, he didn't say a word and simply watched Nenah walk out. Only after Nenah completely disappeared from the president's office did he finally let out a sigh of relief. As long as Nenah didn't make trouble, they still had hope today. After all, it was SN Corporation's president who personally asked to meet him and Lily. What Martin didn't expect was that after Nenah left, he and Lily waited from noon all the way until nightfall. They went from full of confidence to completely defeated. Finally, Martin couldn't take it anymore. He stepped out and found Brian. "Mr. Shaw, is your president in a meeting?" he asked. "It's been an entire day. If she's really too busy, we can come back tomorrow." Brian gave him a cold glance. "Didn't you just kick her out? Mr. Swanson, impressive. It's my first time seeing someone come to our company just to throw out our president." Martin froze, baffled. "What are you talking about? How could we possibly kick out your president? We haven't even seen her once." "Really?" Brian let out a sharp laugh. "Strange, because from where I'm standing, you seem pretty bold. You were lucky our president was willing to give you a shot and you threw her out." "No, that's not." Martin tried to explain, but Brian didn't give him the chance. "Mr. Swanson, it seems you're very capable. You probably don't need SN Corporation's project. Go find someone else to work with." With that, he walked off without looking back, leaving Martin standing there in complete shock. Martin stayed frozen for a long moment before returning to the office. Lily rushed over. "Martin, how did it go? When will the president meet us?" Martin slumped into a chair, defeated. "There won't be a meeting." Lily frowned. What? Mr. Shaw said we kicked out their president and that they'll never work with us again. Martin still couldn't wrap his head around it. When had he ever kicked out SN Corporation's president? He hadn't even seen the president's face, let alone kicked her out. And he certainly didn't have the guts. Lily looked confused, too. We kicked out the president? When? Their president didn't show up at all today. Only... She suddenly stopped mid-sentence. Don't tell me Nenah is the president. Martin blinked, then shook his head hard. Impossible. How could a girl raised by a nightclub hostess be the president of SN Corporation? She was just here to mess things up so we wouldn't get the contract. Lily went quiet for a moment before she said, hesitant, or maybe Nenah offended the president and Mr. Shaw blamed us for it. Martin shot to his feet, furious. That must be it. I knew something was off. No wonder Mr. Shaw talked to me like that. It's all Nenah's doing. He stormed toward the door. I'm going to tear her apart. At that moment, Nenah was standing in front of the Foster residence, her face full of anger. Elaine instinctively kept 3 feet away from her. She thought Nenah looked terrifying today and needed to stay clear, just in case Nenah took out her anger on her. Nenah took a deep breath, trying to suppress her rage. She pressed the doorbell at the Foster residence. Soon, a servant came out. When she saw 2 very attractive girls outside, she froze for a moment. Who are you? Who are you looking for? Nenah Swanson, here to see Ryan Foster, Nenah said, her tone anything but friendly. The servant was taken aback. As far as she knew, Ryan had never been in a relationship. Many girls who had come to see him were thrown out, and anyone who tried to get close often got into trouble. She couldn't understand why 2 girls would dare show up at Ryan's door, and they were both so pretty. The servant had originally intended to refuse Nenah, but seeing how formidable she looked, she decided to go inside and notify Ryan first. Ryan was sitting on the sofa, reading a book. Zachary and Maria were beside him, watching TV. Grace and Charles were leisurely sipping their coffee. Mr. Ryan Foster, there's a young lady named Nenah Swanson outside who wants to see you, the servant said. The moment she finished, Maria, Zachary, Grace, and Charles all looked at Ryan. Ryan paused slightly, holding his book, then said calmly, "Send her away." His family's interest was instantly piqued. Ryan had clearly been head over heels for Nenah before, but now he was acting unusually cold, refusing to see her. Maria quickly moved to sit beside Ryan, curious. "You've given up on Nenah?" Ryan shot her a brief, indifferent glance and said nothing. Maria was infuriated by his cold expression and was about to snap at him when suddenly there was a loud bang. The Fosters all jumped. Maria stood up, clutching her chest, heart racing. What just happened? Before she could finish, the servant rushed in, panicked. Bad news. That girl Nenah kicked the door open. The Fosters were astonished. They couldn't believe that the heavy, expensive door they had invested in had been kicked open by a girl. Then they all looked at Ryan, as if silently asking whether he was dating some kind of monster. Ryan rubbed his temple, feeling a bit helpless. Before he could even get up, Nenah walked in, her face cold and unreadable. She strode straight to Ryan without acknowledging anyone else, placed a share acquisition contract in front of him, and then set a pen on the table with a sharp click. "Sign it," she said coldly. Nenah was genuinely furious. Last night, she had taken Ryan off her blacklist and formally notified him that she would be going to the company today to divide up their shares. But he had vanished all day. He didn't answer her calls or reply to her messages, leaving her to wait at the company for a whole day. Nenah was livid. She had rushed straight from the company to the Foster residence. Elaine had kept her distance from the moment they entered, afraid of getting caught in Nenah's fiery temper. Once she felt she was at a safe distance, she couldn't help but scold Ryan. "What's wrong with you? Why did you have to provoke Nenah? I wasted an entire day for nothing." Elaine was mad too. She had planned to accompany Nenah to the company, wait after she took care of business, and then hang out together. But Nenah had spent the entire day waiting on Ryan at the company, fuming by the end of it. Now they couldn't hang out at all. She thought Ryan was completely useless. Ryan gave Elaine a casual glance and then turned his attention back to Nenah. "I'm not signing," he said flatly. Anger shot through Nenah, making her almost freeze in place. She glared at Ryan icily, forcing herself to hold back the urge to hit him. Just as she was about to speak, Ryan said, "Amy, bring out the food." Right away, the housekeeper, Amy Chapman, replied and quickly set the dishes on the table. Ryan stood and wrapped an arm around Nenah's waist, guiding her to the table. He waved his hand over the food. "Are you going to stay mad first or eat first?" Nenah fell silent. She wanted to kick Ryan, but the familiar aroma made her unbearably hungry. She hadn't eaten anything since breakfast, and waiting in the company all day had only made her hunger worse. Elaine's stomach was growling too. She didn't know if Nenah was hungry, but she certainly was. Without waiting to see if Nenah was still upset, Elaine plopped down into a chair. "Nenah, you stay mad. I'm eating first." Nenah shot her a glance, then quickly sat down, devouring the food like a starving wolf. She and Elaine cleared the table in no time. The Fosters gaped in shock. They couldn't believe how much these two girls could eat, and they were even more surprised about where the food had come from. None of the dishes had been made by Amy. The Fosters preferred mild food. Few of them could handle anything spicy, but this entire table was full of spicy dishes that looked very tasty. Amy noticed their confused expressions and smiled. "Ryan made all of this. He went to the supermarket himself at noon to buy the ingredients. He cooked everything by hand and wouldn't even let me help." Then she glanced at Nenah. Seeing the happiness on Ryan's face while cooking, Amy was certain he had fallen for someone. Looking at Nenah, she realized why Ryan had stayed single for 28 years. No other girl could compare to Nenah. She looked like an angel, and just looking at her was pleasing to the eye. Ryan's parents and grandparents stared in astonishment. They knew him better than anyone, and they hadn't expected Nenah to have such an effect on him. She had completely changed his usual pride, and he even cooked for her himself. At the engagement party, Ryan had said he took good care of Nenah, but his family had always assumed he hired a professional chef. No one expected him to cook personally for her. For a moment, they didn't know whether to feel happy or sorry for Ryan. Ryan glanced at Nenah, who was eating with complete focus, and gave a faint smile. Then he stood, picked up the share acquisition agreement, and was about to tear it up. But Grace, curious about what he was holding, took a closer look at the document. When she read the words on it, she gasped. "Oh my God!" She snatched the agreement out of Ryan's hands with lightning speed and began reading it line by line. Then Grace let out another gasp. "Honey, big news. SN Corporation is actually Ryan and Nenah's company." "What?" The Fosters were all stunned. Charles hurried over and took the agreement from Grace. The shock in his eyes was obvious. Maria and Zachary were equally surprised. "Ryan, you're awesome," Zachary said, looking at him with admiration. "SN Corporation made it into the global top 100 in just a few years, and you founded it? Why didn't you tell us sooner?" Maria suddenly remembered something and snapped. "You little punk. 6 months ago, Foster Group tried to cooperate with SN Corporation on a project, and we got rejected. That was you?" The memory made Maria furious. Foster Group had placed huge importance on collaborating with SN Corporation. The entire company had worked for over 2 months to prepare a solid proposal, but SN Corporation didn't even look at it before rejecting the cooperation. They hadn't even given a reason. The Foster family had been disappointed for a long time, and now it turned out SN Corporation was Ryan's company. Still, despite her anger, Maria felt proud. She had always known Ryan was capable. Otherwise, Charles wouldn't have retired early and handed the company over to him. Since Ryan took over Foster Group, the company's profits had risen several percentage points each year, and the Foster family's position in Betrico had become more secure. But Maria couldn't believe Ryan had refused to let his own family's company collaborate with SN Corporation. "I don't have any decision-making power," Ryan said, rubbing his temples and glancing at Nenah and Elaine, who were happily eating. "The company answers to Nenah." In truth, founding SN Corporation had been Ryan's lucky break. Nenah could have started SN Corporation on her own, but Ryan had wanted to invest so they could be together every day. Nenah wasn't short on money, but she agreed to let him invest, giving him just 30% of the shares. She said it was to give him a sense of security. The Fosters' jaws dropped. They were stunned to see Nenah happily eating while holding all the power in such a huge company. A company of that size, and Ryan has no control? Nenah is really amazing, they thought. However, they couldn't understand where Nenah had gotten the capital to start a group like SN Corporation. They had heard that she'd been raised by a nightclub hostess, so there was no way she could have afforded that kind of money. The Fosters were seasoned business people and fully understood how difficult it was to start a corporation. Not to mention anything else, founding SN Corporation would require at least $300 million in initial investment. They doubted that a nightclub hostess could possibly provide that much money. While Ryan's parents and grandparents were still in shock, Ryan snatched the acquisition agreement from Grace's hands and tore it to pieces without a second thought. Nenah shot up from her seat, her eyes blazing with fury as she stared at the shredded paper in Ryan's hands. Through gritted teeth, she said, "I'll kill you. Even if I die, I'm going down with you," Ryan said, hands in his pockets, a roguish grin on his face. "You took my virginity, so I'm stuck with you for life. Nenah, never think about dumping me." Nenah's anger surged, yet she forced herself to speak calmly. "We're already broken up." "That was your idea," Ryan said. "I never agreed to it." Nenah didn't know what to say. She couldn't even understand what had ever attracted her to this clingy rogue. The atmosphere in the living room grew awkward instantly. The Fosters glanced at Ryan, then at Nenah, unsure how to react. Finally, Grace stepped forward with a smile. Before anyone could process what was happening, she hugged Nenah. Before Grace could say anything, she heard Ryan and Elaine shout behind her, "No." But neither of them could stop Grace. She already wrapped her arms around Nenah. Nenah froze completely. Ryan raised a hand to his forehead while Elaine screamed, "Let her go." Grace looked confused. "I'm just giving Nenah a hug. Do you really have to look like the world's ending?" Although Nenah wasn't Grace's daughter-in-law yet, that didn't stop her from liking Nenah. Seeing Nenah's face made her want to hug her. She couldn't understand why Ryan and Elaine looked so terrified. Elaine stomped her foot in frustration. "Do you even realize what you just did?" Before Elaine could speak, Nenah's face darkened. She raised her hand, a needle suddenly appearing between her fingers. Elaine and Ryan, who normally couldn't stop arguing, instantly teamed up like pros. Elaine quickly hugged Nenah, while Ryan grabbed Grace and pulled her back. Caught off guard, Grace nearly fell to the ground. "Ryan, are you trying to murder me? Are you crazy?" she yelled, furious. Ryan shot her a frosty glance. "Back off, or you'll regret it." Elaine held Nenah tight. "Whoa, calm down. This is your future mother-in-law. You can't hurt her." "I may not like Ryan much, but I can't deny how good he is to you. Guys like him don't grow on trees. If you go after his mom, you two are done for." Ryan let out a sigh. "My mom didn't mean it. I'm sorry on her behalf." Nenah stared at Elaine and Ryan for what felt like forever, confused. "She's been poisoned. I was just blocking her energy channels to stop the poison from spreading." "What's the big deal?" she asked. "What?" Elaine and Ryan were both stunned. After a long pause, Elaine said, "She just put on perfume and you can't stand it when someone wearing perfume tries to hug you. Aren't you pissed?" "If Nenah isn't mad, then I'm," she thought. "She wouldn't even let me hug her at the airport, for crying out loud." "She didn't put on any perfume," Nenah sighed, feeling helpless. Elaine stared in disbelief. "Are you serious? She totally reeks of perfume. Can't you smell that? Is something wrong with your nose?" Nenah rubbed her temples. "That's not perfume. That's poison." She might have split up with Ryan, but there was no real bad blood between them. She'd never just stand by and watch his mom die right in front of her. That was why she'd tried to use a needle to seal Grace's energy channels and stop the poison from spreading. "Huh?" Elaine was stunned. "Poison that smells like fancy perfume? That doesn't make any sense," she thought. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "What kind of poison is it?" He never doubted Nenah's skills. She was the miracle doctor, a legendary traditional healer. "Lover's bane," Nenah replied, her brows knitting together in a grave expression. "It's a passion poison, the most dangerous type. Scarlet created it, and what made it unique was its crazy attractive scent, which was way more tempting than any perfume. When Scarlet first developed it, she warned Nenah that this poison was way too dangerous and should never be used lightly." Nenah had only seen Lover's Bane during the first few days after Scarlet created it. Then it completely disappeared. When she asked Scarlet about it, Scarlet just said she destroyed it and left it at that. She wondered, why was this poison used on Grace? Scarlet is super fond of Ryan and knows all about his family. She said more than once that she wanted me to be with him so he could look after me. It doesn't make sense for her to go after the Foster family, but honestly, who else would even have access to this poison? Ryan's expression darkened as he asked in a low voice, "Is there a cure?" "Yeah," Nenah replied. "For now, I can only use needles to control the poison. To completely cure her, I'll need my special poisonous herb." She went quiet for a second, then said, "I checked Grace. She's been poisoned for less than 3 days. The poison hasn't activated yet. Tomorrow, I'll get Scarlet to bring the herbs and we'll fix her up. But for today," she glanced at Grace, "have a doctor keep an eye on her. The poison will hit hard within 5 days. If whoever poisoned her gets impatient, they might trigger it tonight. So from now on, no food, no drinks, not even water." Nenah paused, then added, "Get her a fresh, completely sterilized room. She'll have to stay there until I get the poisonous herb. Buy her brand new clothes, everything inside and out. Do it yourself." Ryan might act a little shameless around her, but he was super careful with stuff that mattered. She knew he'd get it done right. Ryan nodded. Got it. Even if Nenah hadn't said it, he wasn't about to let anyone else take charge. Grace had just arrived in Riverdale, and now she was poisoned. Someone in this house had to be behind it. Until Nenah cured Grace, Ryan wasn't letting anyone else handle anything. Nenah thought for a moment. If you follow my instructions exactly, whoever's behind this won't be able to trigger the poison anytime soon. She glanced at Ryan. She'd planned to force him to sign that shares contract, but now wasn't the time. "I'll call Scarlet and have her bring the herbs over," she said. Ryan suddenly remembered. "Scarlet's not at the cottage. I'll go get her myself." The cottage where Nenah and Scarlet used to live was a quick 4-hour round trip from Riverdale. Nenah was taken aback. "She's not there? You didn't know?" Ryan was caught off guard. Nenah frowned. "Nope, no clue." Ryan's expression turned serious. "A few days ago, I heard you went back to Scarlet's cottage, so I went to find you. But everything there was gone, and Scarlet had vanished. I thought you'd know about it." Instantly, Nenah's face darkened. Scarlet disappeared without a word, and now her poison was used on Grace. What the hell is going on? Did Scarlet do this? Does she have some beef with the Foster family? And where did Scarlet go? Why didn't she say anything to me? Nenah wondered. After a brief pause, she said, "Elaine will go instead. You stay here and watch Grace. If Scarlet were around, Nenah should have gone herself. But she was afraid that if she left, something might happen to Grace, and she wouldn't make it back in time." Ryan nodded. "Elaine, thanks for helping out." Elaine sighed. She really didn't want to be nice to Ryan, but this wasn't the time for their usual drama. "I'm only doing this for Nenah," she said. Ryan didn't say anything else. Nenah gave a few quick instructions and left with Elaine. Only then did the Foster family elders snap out of their daze. Grace was the first to speak up. "Hold on, what were you guys talking about? Poison? Me? Are you serious?" "Come on, I feel totally fine." "Poisoned? No way. Are they messing with me?" Grace thought, completely bewildered. Maria asked, "Ryan, what's going on? Nenah's a healer?" Grace was poisoned, but she looks perfectly normal. Not a single sign anything's wrong. She's eating, drinking, singing, even dancing. She looks perfectly healthy, she thought, skeptical. Charles was freaking out. "Oh my God, stop talking and get Grace to the hospital. If we waste time, who knows what could happen?" With that, he scooped Grace up, ready to rush her to the hospital. Ryan blocked his path. "Stay put. Just follow Nenah's instructions." Right after, Ryan whipped out his phone and called, "Lock down the house. Not even a fly gets out." "Are you insane? Your mom's been poisoned, and you want her to sit at home? You ungrateful brat. You're messing with her chance to get better," Charles exploded. Zachary, looking worried, chimed in. "Ryan, if Grace is really poisoned, we need to get her to the hospital right now. Keeping her home ain't gonna cut it." "You can trust Nenah's skills with your life," Ryan said, dead serious. "If she can't fix this, then nobody can." After a few quick reminders, he headed out to buy Grace brand new clothes. Tonight was going to be a long, sleepless night. When Nenah walked into the Swanson residence, the living room was packed with people. Except for her second aunt's family, who were overseas, the other 4 branches were all here. Sarah sat at the head of the table, with everyone else lined up on both sides. The tension was very thick, like they'd just finished a massive argument. The moment Nenah entered, Sarah's angry face instantly softened. "Nenah, come sit with me." The rest of the Swansons followed Sarah's gaze. Except for a few who'd always been kind to Nenah, the others looked ready to rip her apart. Nenah shot them a cool look and walked over to Sarah, her voice sweet but tinging with tiredness. "Grandma." After greeting Sarah, she glanced around the room and asked gently, "Why aren't you all in bed yet?" Sarah typically kept a strict schedule and was usually in bed by 10, but it was already 11 at night now. Just as Sarah was about to respond, Martin slammed his hand on the table. "How dare you even ask? What did we do to deserve you trying to destroy us?" Nenah raised an eyebrow and took the seat next to Sarah, leaning back with a relaxed posture. The sweet act she'd been putting on for Sarah vanished, replaced by a razor-sharp edge. "Nenah, I know you've got a lot of resentment after suffering for more than 10 years because we were switched at birth, but you can't just vent your anger by messing up our deal with SN Corporation. Brian made it clear today that SN won't work with our family anymore. Losing a project this big means we're basically stuck for at least 5 years." "You've gone way too far this time," Lily said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Enough," Sarah said coldly, shooting Lily a look. "I was the one who told Nenah to learn from you guys. What, you gonna blame me too now?" "I didn't blame you, Grandma," Lily whispered. Her eyes glistened with tears, looking totally wronged. Vivian couldn't stand seeing Lily upset. She jumped up, anger blazing. "Sarah, this is totally unfair. Nenah's the one who messed everything up. Why did you take it out on Lily? She worked all night and finally got a chance to meet SN's CEO. And then what?" She shot Nenah a glare. "Because of this idiot, Lily didn't even get to submit her proposal before SN canceled the deal. All her hard work went down the drain. Why shouldn't she call Nenah out? She has never done anything to hurt our family." Sarah remained calm. "So Lily's never done anything wrong, but Nenah has? Vivian, who really caused this mess? Do I really need to spell it out?" Vivian's face stiffened, but she still shot back. "It was Nenah. She shouldn't even exist." "Enough," Sarah slammed her hand on the table, her voice sharp with anger. "Nenah's your daughter, your flesh and blood. How can you talk about her like that?" "If I'd known she was such a disaster, I never would have had her," Vivian spat. She'd always disliked Nenah, and now pure hatred burned in her eyes. The $300 million project is toast. Fine. But even after Nenah's massive screw-up, Sarah is still defending her blindly, Vivian thought, her chest burning with pure rage. "You." Sarah was so furious her chest ached, momentarily speechless. Nenah stood to steady her. Then she strode right toward Vivian, her entire demeanor shifting. Sarah quickly grabbed her arm. "No, don't. Nenah's got a crazy temper. No idea where she gets it from. When she's fired up, she doesn't care who's in her way, not even her mother." Sarah sighed silently. Nenah stopped in her tracks and turned to Sarah. "She upset you." Sarah had been fuming, but Nenah's words made her chuckle. "Getting angry won't kill me. Anyway, she's your mom. Don't hit her, okay? Those years of struggle must have changed her. Now she's got this habit of wanting to throw down," Sarah reflected. She remembered psychology interviews suggesting that people who were quick to violence often carried deep emotional wounds, and fighting was just their way of protecting themselves. Thinking about Nenah's potential trauma, Sarah felt her heart break all over again. She thought, "This isn't working. Looks like I gotta find a therapist for Nenah." She can't keep losing her cool like this. It's just family, and I can still hold her back. But if she starts fighting outside or messes with someone tougher than our family, I won't be able to protect her. Vivian's anger burned even hotter. "What, you want to hit me? You've got some nerve." She stepped up, challenging Nenah. "Go ahead, let's see if you've got the nerve to lay a hand on me." Nenah let out a cold laugh. "Seriously, I've never seen anyone so eager to get smacked. Now that she asks for it, I'm more than happy to oblige." Without hesitation, Nenah kicked towards Vivian. Ethan saw things spiraling and quickly jumped in front of Vivian. Nenah moved so fast and Ethan appeared so suddenly that she couldn't pull back in time. Nenah frowned. "What are you doing?" Ethan pushed himself up against the wall, feeling like every single organ in his body was about to shatter. Nenah looked so tiny. How did she have that kind of strength? He wondered. Confused, that kick almost sent me to meet my maker. Wiping blood from his mouth, Ethan sighed. "Hit whoever you want, just not her. These family dynamics are insane. If Nenah went off on Vivian, this would blow up online in seconds," he thought. He didn't care if Vivian was asking for trouble, but he had to protect Nenah. Nenah rubbed her temples, feeling frustrated. "How many times do I have to explain? I don't give a damn about my reputation. I just want to protect the people I care about." Seeing Sarah's worried face, Nenah sighed softly. She turned to Vivian. "Get out of my sight. You're giving me a headache." Vivian was completely stunned. She never expected Nenah to actually lay a hand on her. The moment Nenah spoke, she instinctively took a step back. Nenah shot everyone a cold glare before reaching into her bag and handing Sarah a contract. "Here's the SN contract. Just sign it and send it to SN." Sarah was stunned. "The SN contract? What's going on?" She thought, didn't everyone say Nenah destroyed the deal with SN? I never believed Nenah would sabotage things, but our family's deal with SN really did fall through. So how does Nenah have the contract? Nenah shot Martin and Lily a mocking look and replied, "Don't believe anything these two idiots say." Martin and Lily stared at the contract in Sarah's hands, their eyes wide with disbelief. After a stunned minute of silence, they blurted out together, "No way, this contract is fake." "Fake," Ethan scoffed. "This contract has SN Corporation's official seal." "SN Corporation's official seal?" Lily nearly collapsed. Instantly, she snatched the contract from Sarah's hands. Seeing the seal, exclusive to SN Corporation, Lily was totally dumbfounded. "How is this possible?" She stared at Nenah in total disbelief. "Brian said they wouldn't work with us. How did you get this contract?" Martin's jaw dropped when he saw the seal. He could tell it was legit. Though the Swansons hadn't partnered with SN Corporation, Martin had seen similar contracts before. He remembered watching a small startup that had once desperately begged for his partnership get snatched up by SN Corporation instead, and the memory still burned. Besides, forging SN Corporation's seal was basically a legal suicide mission. Nobody would dare try it unless they were crazy. Martin couldn't help but wonder, how did Nenah land this contract? Seeing the weird looks on the two's faces, Vivian asked, "Is this contract fake?" Martin looked up at her, his expression complicated emotions. "It's real." "What?" The entire Swanson family was floored. "This is a genuine SN contract? We failed after all our hard work." But Nenah, who hadn't even finished high school, pulled it off. How, they thought. James was surprised too. He took the contract from Martin, examined it carefully, then turned to Nenah. "How did you do this?" Nenah smiled. "I told you yesterday, I'm the CEO of SN. James's mouth twitched. After a long pause, he finally managed to say, "Can you be serious for once?" Nenah was speechless. "I am being serious, okay?" "Careful, your tongue might get tangled from all that bragging," Vivian muttered, shocked that Nenah had landed the contract. She still couldn't stand Nenah, but didn't spit out harsh words. After all, the contract was legit. Nenah had secured the Swanson family a $300 million partnership. If I talk trash and Nenah loses it, ripping up the contract, I'll be the most hated, Vivian thought. SN Group is tough on partnerships. Top talents struggle to get approved. "Nenah, can I see your proposal? Maybe I can learn something," Lily said, her fists clenching so tightly her knuckles turned white. She thought, how could I accept it? I pulled an all-nighter and didn't even meet SN's CEO, only for Nenah to swoop in and steal everything. She was dying to see just how impressive Nenah's plan really was. "No proposal," Nenah said flatly, flashing Lily a half-smile. Her mood, previously soured by Ryan, was now excellent. She loved watching Lily's idiotic expression. "No proposal?" Lily's eyes bulged. "You didn't even have a plan, and they still signed? Are you freaking kidding me?" "Nenah, cut the act," Martin snapped, his brows furrowed in annoyance. "It's just one contract, and you're getting all cocky. Who knows if you wrote that proposal yourself?" He thought, no way Nenah, a high school dropout, could pull off a $300 million partnership proposal. Bet she got someone else to write it for her, and now she's too scared to show the real proposal. Sarah frowned and said coldly, "Doesn't matter who wrote it. Nenah got the contract, so it's her achievement. Why are you so jealous?" Martin's face darkened. "Grandma, look at Nenah. Does she seem like someone who could pull off a deal like that?" "She absolutely does," Sarah said. Martin choked for a moment but stubbornly pressed on. "If she won't show the proposal, I'm betting she stole it from me and Lily." Suddenly, a thought struck Lily. She blurted out, "Exactly, Grandma. I spent all night on that proposal, and everyone knows it. Nenah was up all night too, and right before we were supposed to meet SN's CEO, she showed up out of nowhere. She must have stolen our proposal. In truth, the proposal was a team effort between Lily and Martin. Martin designed the main structure, and Lily handled the details. It was Lily's first time creating a proposal, so she'd been completely lost. That was why she'd pulled an all-nighter to get it done. Last night, while getting water, Lily caught Nenah on the phone. Lily hadn't thought much of it then, but now she was convinced Nenah had used that moment to swipe their proposal. That sneaky Nenah? Stealing my hard work to get the Swansons' attention. She thinks she can get away with this? No way, Lily seethed. Sarah's face darkened. "If you don't have any proof, I suggest you all shut up. If you think we're making this up, let Nenah show the proposal and we'll see," Vivian said, shooting Nenah a glare. "I knew Nenah was trouble. She just got back and already tried stealing Lily's proposal. Who knows what chaos she'll cause if she stays, she thought." "Exactly," Linda, Robert's wife, chimed in. "Sarah, I know you love Nenah, but be realistic. We're a respected family in the city. We can't have a thief in the house." Judy, Michael's wife, sneered. "Nenah grew up with a nightclub hostess and barely went to school. There's no way she could write a decent proposal." "We agreed from the start. Whoever lands the contract manages the project. But if that proposal isn't Nenah's and she's running things, we'd all be on the hook if something goes wrong." Judy wasn't defending Vivian. She was just worried the project might fail and everyone would have to chip in to cover the losses. As soon as Judy finished, Michael, Nenah's third uncle, quickly tugged her sleeve. "Knock it off." Noticing Sarah's dark expression, Judy huffed and fell silent. Sarah swept a stern gaze across the room, finally landing on James. "Your take?" James glanced at Nenah. "Since everyone's questioning you, prove yourself." "Nenah." Sarah sighed, stuck. She believed in Nenah. But if she didn't ask about the proposal, the family would never let it go. Yet if she did, Nenah might get hurt that she didn't trust her. "Grandma, don't stress," Nenah said softly. "It's true. The proposal wasn't written by me." Martin exploded. "I knew it. Nenah, you've got some nerve. Back 5 minutes and already stealing from us?" Sarah was stunned. She never imagined Nenah would actually steal Lily and Martin's proposal. Now even she couldn't defend her. Nenah narrowed her eyes and walked straight toward Martin. Martin tensed. "What are you doing? You steal from us and act all righteous? Try touching me and see what happens." Without warning, Nenah kicked Martin, sending him flying. Martin spat out blood, seething. "Nenah's completely insane. She steals from us and then attacks me? There's no one more shameless and crazier." Nenah didn't even glance at Martin. Instead, she pointed at Henry. "Show me the proposal you gave Brian today." Henry looked totally confused. "Me? What? Why am I getting dragged into this? I never messed with Nenah," he thought. Ever since Nenah gave Martin a good beating on her first day home, Henry had been avoiding her, not daring to provoke her at all. Why is she targeting me now? And how did she find out I sent that proposal to SN Corporation? I thought no one knew, he wondered. Nenah frowned. "Can't understand what I said." Henry flinched at her tone and quickly pulled out his proposal. "Here, take it. Just don't threaten me, okay?" Nenah was speechless. "When did I ever threaten you?" Ignoring Henry, she handed the proposal to Sarah. SN approved Henry's plan. He'll handle the follow-up. Everyone was stunned again. Henry was completely bewildered. "What? Wait, my proposal got approved? Why didn't anyone tell me? I'm just a junior employee. I threw this proposal together to test myself. It's pretty basic." Why would SN approve something like this? Is Nenah messing with me? He wondered. Lily was practically losing it. "No way. Henry just graduated and has been at the company for a year. He's a nobody. Why would SN choose his proposal?" Tears filled her eyes, her voice shaking. You're making up stories to dodge responsibility, Nenah. I know you hate me. If you want something, just say it. I'll give it to you. But I poured my heart and soul into this proposal. If you want it, fine, I'll hand it over, but you can't even erase my name. Lily broke down sobbing. This is a $300 million project, not some game. You didn't help with the proposal, and now you want to take over? If something goes wrong, you can't handle it. Please, I'm begging you, just admit it. I won't blame you. I'll make sure you're included in the project. Seeing Lily cry, Vivian exploded. Nenah, you're impossible. First, you steal Lily's proposal, and now you're using Henry's to cover your tracks. Where did I go wrong having a daughter like you? Then she turned to Sarah. See, this is who Nenah really is. I warned you about bringing her back, but you just wouldn't listen. Ever since she came home, our family's been a disaster. She's a thief at her age. Who knows what she'll do next? You need to kick her out today. What, are you going to throw me out too? Sarah said, her voice low and serious. Vivian exploded. Enough is enough. Nenah turned out like this because you spoiled her. If she can steal from her family today, who knows who she'll target next? You're going to ruin her sooner or later. Sarah's face was stone. I know Nenah better than you do, even as her mother. If she says she didn't steal anything, I believe her. Nenah glanced at Sarah, warmth spreading through her chest. Having someone trust me completely feels incredible, she thought. But she did steal my proposal. Lily wailed, her voice breaking. Grandma, I poured my heart into that. Now it's been ripped away. Don't I deserve an explanation? Just then, Nenah grabbed Lily by the hair, and Lily let out a piercing scream. Vivian's face dropped, and she snapped, Nenah, what the hell are you doing? Nenah didn't even spare her a glance. Instead, she slapped Lily's cheek a few times with her pale hand, her voice flat. You think I'm going easy on you to be nice? With that, Nenah yanked Lily's hair back hard, grabbed a wet wipe from the table, and slowly cleaned her hand like Lily was toxic. Listen up, Nenah said coldly. Don't bark at me. It drives me crazy, and when I'm mad, I love knocking out teeth. Lily's fingers dug into her palms, pure hatred burning in her eyes. Nenah grinned, looking satisfied. That's the look I want. Keep glaring at me, and maybe I'll show some mercy. Lily's expression shifted, quickly hiding her hatred. Nenah turned coolly, grabbed Henry's proposal from the table and tossed it to Martin. Hey, Mr. 180 IQ, check out what a 90 IQ rookie can do. Martin looked uncomfortable, but he still picked up the proposal and started reading. The more he read, the more stunned he became. Henry's proposal was beyond perfect, absolutely flawless. His and Lily's proposal wasn't even close to Henry's. Martin gripped Henry's proposal, his face going pale. He'd poured so much effort into this, but Henry, a total newbie, had completely crushed him. It felt like a brutal public humiliation. Nenah gave Martin a cold look. So what do you think? Martin's face stung like fire, as if he'd just been slapped hard. As he looked up, he caught pure mockery in Nenah's eyes. All his buried inferiority came rushing back, and it made him want to prove himself even more. Martin lifted his chin, acting all high and mighty. Even if SN approved Henry's proposal, that doesn't change that you stole something. Maybe you didn't take Lily's, but you swiped Henry's. He turned to Henry. She stole your work. Aren't you pissed? Henry looked confused. Why would I be mad? Whether she stole it or not, at least someone saw my proposal. That means I did something right, yeah? Martin just stared at him. What a total idiot. Nenah smiled, savoring Martin's expression. She towered over Martin, her voice dripping with scorn. You idiot. After spending a whole day at SN, you still haven't figured out why I was in the CEO's office? Martin was stunned. Yeah, how did Nenah get into the CEO's office? SN's security was insane. Only the CEO's guests and Brian could get in. Then it hit him. You used our names to get in, didn't you? He asked. Martin figured Nenah must have just slipped in with them when they went to SN. Nenah stared in disbelief. I've never met anyone this clueless, and we're actually related? Gross. Nenah, what's really going on? Sarah couldn't help asking. How did you sign the contract? How did you even know Henry submitted a proposal? Even she was curious now. SN's projects were notoriously impossible to land. How did Nenah make it look so easy? Yeah, Nenah, Henry chimed in, looking baffled. I went there around noon today. The receptionist grabbed my proposal before I could even talk to anyone in charge. I never saw you there. So how did you know about it? Nenah pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling speechless. I've told you guys I run SN, but you never take me seriously. The Swansons stared silently. We're supposed to believe a high school dropout raised by a nightclub hostess is the CEO of SN? We'd sooner believe pigs can fly, they thought. I got it, Lily suddenly blurted. Nenah, are you the CEO's mistress? Before Nenah could respond, Lily exploded. How could you do this? You're engaged to Ryan. You're making him look like a fool. Nenah's hand froze mid-brow, her face cycling through a range of emotions. Nenah, you heartless snake, Vivian roared, nearly shaking the house. You ruined Lily's engagement, stole her fiancé, and now you're trying to seduce N Corporation's CEO? Have you no shame? Lily cared so much about Ryan. Nenah not only humiliated her publicly, but also stole Ryan right under her nose. Worse, Nenah didn't cherish the man she'd stolen. Instead, she went around flirting with someone else. Vivian thought, so mad she could barely breathe. Nenah, you've gone too far, Lily snapped. The Foster family might not match SN Group, but they're still big in Betrico. How could you dump Ryan and get involved with SN's CEO? Do you even realize the CEO is almost 60? He's older than Dad. How are Mom and Dad supposed to show their faces after this? Lily was both fuming and heartbroken. She should have been glad Nenah was hooking up with SN's CEO, but she just couldn't bring herself to be. She cared so much about Ryan, but he was basically Nenah's simp, even after she had cheated on him. Lily was so grossed out she could throw up. Nenah, did you really make Ryan a cuck? Ethan's eyes bulged. Nenah was at a loss for words. Sarah smacked Ethan's forehead. Stop talking nonsense. Nenah would never do something like that. Then she switched gears. But Nenah, SN's CEO is pretty old. If you're not into Ryan, we can find you someone else. Maybe you should just break things off with that CEO. Nenah looked at them, exasperated. Who said the SN CEO is some old guy? That's common knowledge, Ethan replied. Brian mentioned in an interview that their CEO is basically ancient, barely running anything. He just lets Brian handle everything. Great, no wonder nobody believes I'm the CEO. They think I'm some 60-year-old grandpa, Nenah thought, speechless. She pinched the bridge of her nose, exasperated. You don't believe I'm the SN CEO? Why do you think the company is called SN? Ethan thought for a second. Then his eyes lit up. SN, Nenah Swanson. Wow, the CEO must be obsessed with you. He named the whole company after you. Whatever makes you happy, Nenah said flatly, heading straight upstairs to rest. Honestly, she felt like there was a massive generation gap between her and her family. The next day, just as Nenah came downstairs, she saw Henry pacing back and forth there, looking totally on edge. Spotting her, Henry quickly approached. Nenah. Right then, Nenah's phone buzzed. She shot off a text reply while asking, "What's up?" Thanks, Henry said, a little shy. I wanted to thank you last night, but the house was such a mess, and I never got the chance. After sending her message, Nenah looked up at him. You don't need to thank me. Thank yourself. Henry was Michael's son, her sixth cousin on her dad's side. As a kid, she mostly hung out with Sarah. Vivian would occasionally drag her off for training. She never really got close to her cousins. Now that she was back with the Swanson family, her cousins always went out of their way to avoid her, so she didn't know much about them. All she knew was that when they were kids, all the children in the family had to take IQ tests, and both she and Henry scored below average. Judy and Michael weren't as heartless as Vivian. They never abandoned Henry. But even so, he still had a tough time at home. Vivian and her sisters-in-law were always polite on the surface, but constantly competing behind closed doors. Since Vivian's kids were basically geniuses, the sisters-in-law were always secretly trying to one-up each other. Because Henry bombed his IQ test, Judy'd always put him down, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Like Joanna's kids, he constantly got the cold shoulder. But Nenah didn't approve of Henry's proposal out of kindness. It was because the proposal was genuinely impressive. During lunch with Elaine yesterday, she'd spotted Henry at the front desk and had the receptionist bring up his proposal. The proposal was bold and innovative, so she approved it immediately. She already planned to give the project to the Swanson family, so Henry's impressive proposal was just a bonus. I really have to thank you. Without you, I'd still be invisible, Henry said. Don't worry. I'll give this project everything I've got. Your investment is safe with me, I promise. Nenah raised an eyebrow. You believe me? Henry nodded firmly. Absolutely. Getting a project with SN Corporation is usually impossible, but this went through so easily. I don't think it's because you have some special connection with the CEO. He hesitated, looking embarrassed. SN is huge. Their CEO wouldn't approve a project just for some woman. And honestly, if you don't care about Ryan, there's no way you'd be interested in some old guy. That leaves only one possibility. You're the CEO of SN. Nenah smiled. Smart thinking. Henry scratched his head, looking a little awkward. Just then, Nenah's phone buzzed with another message. She glanced at it, put her phone away, then looked at Henry and said, Protect what's yours. Don't worry, Henry smiled. Now that I finally have a shot, no way I'm letting anyone steal it. Nenah arched her brow, gave him one last look, and then walked away without another word. When Nenah arrived at the Foster residence, Ryan was seated on the couch, legs crossed elegantly, a cigarette between his fingers. 2 rows of bodyguards in black suits flanked him. Directly in front stood a woman in her 30s. Judging by her uniform, she was a maid. Spotting Nenah, Ryan quickly stubbed out his cigarette, got up and said, Let me cook for you. Nenah didn't say no. She deliberately skipped dinner at the Swanson residence because she was craving Ryan's cooking. After 2 years with him, her taste buds had gotten spoiled rotten. How I wish Ryan hadn't messed around behind my back, or I never would have let a guy like him go. Nenah sighed silently. If Ryan could read her mind, he'd shouted, How many times do I have to say it? I didn't cheat. Once Ryan finished cooking, everyone else in the Foster family came downstairs. Maria spotted the food and rushed over. Oh, wow, Ryan cooked this. I've got to try it. She reached for her fork, but Ryan snatched it away. That's for Nenah. Yours isn't ready yet, he said. Maria fell silent. Now that he's got a girlfriend, he's forgotten all about me, she thought, giving Nenah a wounded look. Nenah felt awkward. She cleared her throat and said, Let's eat together. Sounds good, Maria exclaimed. Without hesitation, she sat down and started eating. Ryan stared, shooting Nenah a look of silent complaint. Charles and Zachary quickly joined, not wanting to miss out. Before they could grab a bite, Ryan pulled all the dishes to Nenah. Nothing left for you guys. The maid will cook something later. Heartless brat, Charles and Zachary thought. Ignoring the bitter looks around him, Ryan poured Nenah a glass of milk and sat down next to her. Elaine's still on her way back, and my mom didn't have an episode last night. Nenah nodded, glancing at the woman standing in the living room. So you caught the poisoner yesterday? Yeah, Ryan said, his tone flat. She'll be thrown to the wolves soon. Nenah kept eating, unfazed. Brutal. Ryan grinned, leaned in, and whispered in her ear, I'm even more brutal in bed. Nenah paused, then swung at Ryan. Ryan caught her fist. I'm brutal? Nenah, you're way more brutal than me. You're always plotting to kill your husband, he thought. Nenah glanced at her hand in his grip, a smirk tugging at her lips. I'm done treating your mom. Ryan immediately let go. Don't be so heartless, he said, his eyes looking wounded and accusatory. Nenah slouched back in her chair, grabbed Ryan's collar, and yanked him close. Heartless? Do I need to crush your balls to prove I have a heart? She smiled, but her eyes were glacial. Ryan frowned, feeling the murderous vibe coming off Nenah. For a second, she'd seriously considered taking him out. He pulled Nenah in by the neck, their faces just inches apart, close enough to kiss. His eyes bore into hers, his voice husky and grave. If you're gonna send me to death row, at least give me a good reason, okay? Before Nenah could respond, he added, and don't use the engagement as an excuse. My family set that up behind my back. I've never betrayed you. Nenah locked eyes with him and grabbed his chin. Guess why I call Lily your 4th backup girl? Ryan froze, then shot to his feet, his face stone cold. That's crossing the line. If you've got a legit reason to break up, fine. But I won't let you trash my name like that. Nenah scoffed, standing up to face him. Cheating and still acting all high and mighty? You're the first guy I've ever seen pull that crap. Ryan was totally pissed. I never cheated, he growled, his voice low and heavy. Nenah didn't want to get dragged into this any further. She said coolly, I helped Grace because you've treated me all right all these years, but that doesn't give you a free pass. After I save Grace, don't come bothering me again. Otherwise, I won't mind making you pay for every bit you owe me for betraying me." Without waiting for a response, Nenah turned to Maria and asked about Grace's room. Maria told a maid to show her the way upstairs. Nenah didn't even give Ryan another look as she followed the maid upstairs. Once Nenah was gone, Maria smacked Ryan hard on the back. "You jerk, you really cheated?" Ryan stared after Nenah, feeling both angry and helpless. He couldn't understand why Nenah thought he'd cheated. Most of their time together, he'd been right by her side. When not with her, he was just handling business. He'd never even had a chance to get close to another woman. Besides, he never felt anything for anyone except Nenah. So where did this cheating nonsense even come from? But Nenah was so convinced he'd cheated. Clearly, something had happened that he didn't know about. He needed to dig deeper and uncover the truth. As Ryan stayed silent, Maria snapped, "I'm talking to you. Did you really mess things up with Nenah? How could you be such a jerk?" Ryan was still fuming, growling, "How many times do I have to say it? I didn't cheat." "If you didn't cheat, why would Nenah be so sure?" Maria shot back. She looked like she had rock-solid proof, so what the hell is going on? Ryan rubbed his temples. "I wish I knew." He'd been blindsided by the cheating accusation, with no way to clear his name. The worst part was that Nenah wouldn't believe a word he said. Maria stared at Ryan for ages before finally saying, "Nenah wouldn't make this up. You need to figure out what really happened, or this whole mess is going to explode. You're sharp, Ryan. Nenah's a good girl. If you're serious about her, treat her right. Don't let her down." Maria had seen enough in life to recognize true love, and it was crystal clear in Ryan's eyes whenever he looked at Nenah. Ryan was cold to everyone else, but with Nenah, he was a whole different person. He treated her like she was his treasure. There was no way he'd ever cheat. But Nenah wasn't the type to make a fuss over nothing. If she was this convinced Ryan had cheated, there must be some kind of misunderstanding between them. Nenah's the daughter-in-law every family dreams of. Gotta help Ryan keep her, Maria thought. Ryan narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, I'm getting to the bottom of this." Upstairs, Nenah entered Grace's room and started checking her pulse. Grace lay obediently on the bed, letting Nenah examine her. Her eyes never left Nenah for a second. Nenah noticed, gave her a brief glance, then focused back on the pulse check. Grace looked Nenah up and down and blurted out, "You're gorgeous." Nenah's fingers paused. "Thanks," she said, her voice calm. "For real, though, what do you see in Ryan?" Grace clicked her tongue. "He's always got a poker face, totally boring and ice cold. Besides that face that inherited all my good looks, he's got nothing to show for himself." Nenah's lips twitched. "Guess I must have been blind." Grace nodded. "Yeah, probably." She paused, then suddenly switched gears. "But bad taste in guys is fixable, right? Ryan says you're an amazing doctor, so can you cure it?" "Yep, already did," Nenah said with a casual shrug. "That's why I dumped him." Grace fell silent for a moment. "Might as well stay blind then. Sure, I complain about Ryan all the time, but he's still my kid. It's not easy for him to find a wife he likes. I can't let you walk away. I really like you. Why not give him another chance? I'd love to have you as my daughter-in-law." Nenah looked up at Grace, her face serious. "Thanks for the compliment." Grace thought, so that's a definite no? Ryan's always been so full of himself. Good looks, money, girls falling all over him. But Nenah couldn't care less. She's got looks and cash. If she wanted a hot guy, she could get one in a heartbeat. Ryan doesn't have a single advantage over others in her eyes. I finally find a daughter-in-law, and yet she's about to bail. What should I do? Who can help me? Nenah continued checking Grace's pulse without another word. After a while, she said, "The poison hasn't spread. Once the poisonous herb arrives, I'll cure you." Grace paused, then spoke up doubtfully. "Am I really poisoned? I feel totally fine. Eating, sleeping, living my normal life. Doesn't feel like I'm poisoned at all." Nenah pressed her lips together. After what felt like forever, she said, "If you want to know what it's like when the poison hits, we can wait until it flares up before I treat you. But I can't guarantee you'll survive." Grace went silent. "Come on, I was just kidding. No way am I letting that poison actually get me." When Ryan went upstairs, Nenah was giving Grace acupuncture. "How's my mom?" Ryan asked, setting a glass of water next to Nenah. His expression was neutral, as if their earlier argument had never happened. Nenah didn't look up, her tone icy. She'll be fine. Once Elaine brings the poisonous herb, I can cure her. Ryan fell silent, swallowing any explanation as he saw Nenah's indifferent face. For a moment, the atmosphere turned awkwardly quiet. Grace's eyes darted between Nenah and Ryan. Just as she was about to speak, a maid walked in and said, "Miss Swanson, Miss Sinclair is here." Nenah got up and left the room without sparing Ryan a single glance. Grace smacked Ryan's shoulder in anger. "You coward, just looking at you makes me mad. You upset Nenah and you're just sitting here? You're usually so full of yourself, and now you can't spit out a single word?" Ryan remained silent. "I want to fix this, but she won't give me a chance." Downstairs, Nenah took the poisonous herb from Elaine and asked for a private room to work on the antidote. She knew how to detoxify Lover's Bane, but had never actually made the antidote before. She'd have to prepare it from scratch. Quickly, Nenah had the antidote ready and headed straight upstairs to treat Grace. Zachary, Maria, and Charles all followed her upstairs. Nenah didn't bother asking them to leave. Lover's Bane was nasty, but it was no big deal to her. She handed Grace the antidote and adjusted the 3 needles on her body. Grace swallowed the medicine obediently. Nenah wrote out a prescription for Ryan and said, "Take this twice a day for 3 days. You've got the bath formula. Have Grace soak for a week." Ryan took the prescription, pressing his lips together. "Thanks," Nenah said flatly. "This isn't free." Ryan fell silent. Oh no, Nenah's seriously mad this time. Before, she'd help without mentioning money, even though I always transferred her cash anyway. Now she brought it up first. She really wants to cut me off. Ryan let out a sigh. Being misunderstood by Nenah just felt awful. "Wait, that's it?" Grace blinked, confused. "I'm cured?" She seriously wondered if Nenah and Ryan had been messing with her. She hadn't felt a thing when poisoned, and now felt nothing getting cured. All she did was switch rooms, sleep a night, take a pill, and boom, poison gone. Who recovers from poisoning this quickly anyway? Grace thought. Elaine's mouth twitched. Too bad you missed out on the full poison experience. The woman downstairs hasn't been thrown to the wolves yet, so she probably still has some poison left. Why don't you try another dose and get the full Lover's Bane experience? Grace immediately shook her head. No way. What am I, nuts? Who takes poison just for kicks? She thought. As Grace was okay, Maria breathed a sigh of relief. She turned to Nenah and asked, "What happens when the Lover's Bane hits?" She'd go completely insane, her body would shut down, and the only apparent relief would be through sex. To someone who doesn't know about the poison, it looked like she was drugged with an aphrodisiac. But sex won't help. She could die during the act, Nenah said flatly. Maria gasped. That's horrifying. Who'd be so vicious as to poison Grace like that? Thank God Nenah showed up today, she thought. Without her, we'd have probably thought Grace was drugged with an aphrodisiac and called a doctor. By then, it would have been too late. Grace wouldn't have survived. Nenah furrowed her brow, staying silent. Ryan glanced down at her. I'll see you out. Nenah met his eyes, sensing he had something to say, and nodded. Ryan was driving, with Elaine and Nenah in the back. The front passenger seat had always been Nenah's, but now she wouldn't even go near it. Ryan caught Nenah's stormy expression in the rearview mirror and sighed. That poison was from Scarlet. He wasn't asking. He was sure of it. Nenah looked up, her stunning face an unreadable mask. What are you getting at? Don't be so defensive, Ryan said, a sharp pain twisting in his chest. Even if we split up, we don't have to be enemies. Besides, Scarlet's always been like family to me. Nenah just looked down, saying nothing. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. The woman we caught last night said another woman gave her the poison. Her description sounded exactly like Scarlet. He paused, then added, Scarlet's sudden disappearance must have something to do with this, right? After what felt like forever, Nenah said, when you find the real mastermind, I want to see her myself. It can't be Scarlet, but how did her poison end up with that woman? And why does that woman look so much like Scarlet? What's her game? Is someone targeting Scarlet? She wondered. Nenah only knew a few people with a grudge against Scarlet, but none looked anything like her. And Scarlet had never mentioned someone like that. I've got someone checking it out, Ryan said. Got it, Nenah replied. Ryan pulled up outside Elaine's villa. Under Elaine's insistent urging, Nenah had decided not to go home today and instead stay at her villa. Just as Nenah was about to step inside, Ryan called after her, "Nenah." Nenah paused. "Anything else?" Elaine was walking ahead of them. She glanced back and made herself scarce, giving the two some privacy. Ryan approached Nenah, his face serious. "You said we should be honest with each other. I honestly have no idea what I did to make you think I cheated. Could you please tell me?" Nenah looked up at him, staring for a long moment. Then she reached out, touched his face, and let out a mocking smile. "Ryan," she said, "I did love you. Besides Scarlet, you were the kindest to me. You two saved me. I really cherished you both. But you," her hand drifted down, her middle finger pressing right over his heart. "You stabbed me in the heart. You made a fool out of me." Ryan gripped her hand, his voice urgent. "Nenah, please, just tell me what happened." He thought, his chest tightening. Nenah is hurting. She's the one I treasure more than anything, the last person I'd ever want to see hurt. But now she says I stabbed her right in the heart. How could I ever do that to her? "You want the truth?" Nenah sneered. Rain put on. "Claire. Shocking, huh? I was standing right outside the door." Ryan's mind went blank, panic flashing in his eyes. "Nenah, please, just listen. It's not." Nenah cut him off, her voice cold as ice. "Save it. Sign the share repurchase agreement and we'll be even." Without even looking back, she walked into the villa. Ryan clenched his hand into a tight fist and slammed it against the car door. After a long moment, he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Get your ass to Riverdale now." The next day, Nenah arrived at the Swanson residence just in time for dinner. Since Elaine had complained about not spending enough time together, Nenah had spent the entire day hanging out with her. Originally, Elaine hadn't planned to let Nenah go home, but Sarah called and said there was a family dinner tonight, asking Nenah to come home for it. Only then did Elaine agree to let her go, though she wasn't happy about it. The entire Swanson family was already gathered. Nenah was the last to arrive. The moment Nenah walked in, Vivian barked, "Do you know what time it is? Sarah called you at noon, and you only show up now? The whole family's been waiting for you. What happened to your manners?" "Nenah, don't make me keep repeating myself. This is the Swanson residence, not some nightclub or hotel. This isn't your personal playground." Before Nenah could respond, Vivian snapped, "And where were you last night? Do you remember you're a Swanson now? You're the face of this family, a Swanson daughter staying out all night. What kind of mess is that? Do you remember you're a Swanson now? You're the face of this family, a Swanson daughter staying out all night. What kind of mess is that? If you can't fix this nasty habit, then just get out before you cause us any more trouble." Vivian was on a full-blown rampage, firing accusations without letting Nenah get a word in. Sarah's face darkened, and she was about to blow a fuse. But before she could, Nenah cut in. "So our family's now reduced to letting an 80 IQ loser like me represent its image? Guess we're done for. Might as well file for bankruptcy." "Nenah," Vivian slammed her hand on the table, "you just got back and you're already wishing our family goes under. What's wrong with you?" In Nenah's eyes, Vivian was all bark and no bite. She scoffed. "I'm a total failure, right, Mrs. Swanson? When I was 6, you dumped me in that hellhole. Wasn't it because my IQ was so low I was an embarrassment you couldn't bear?" "Nonsense." Vivian's face changed, panic flaring up inside her. Everyone already knew about it, but with Nenah calling it out so bluntly, Vivian felt embarrassed, especially when she saw the second and third branches looking at her with sheer schadenfreude. Vivian always flaunted her smart kids, but after Nenah came along, all that pride turned to humiliation. After abandoning Nenah and bringing Lily back, she thought she'd reclaimed her pride. But now, Nenah was grinding that pride into the dirt all over again. "Why would I ever have this brat?" she seethed. "She's been a pain since day one, and she's only getting worse." Nenah savored the embarrassed, panicked look on Vivian's face. She curled her lips into a smirk and said calmly, "I'm a loser, right? And now you need me to save the family's reputation. Why don't you just declare bankruptcy?" Vivian was so mad her teeth were practically chattering. "Are you crazy? What good does it do you if our family goes bankrupt? Sarah adores you so much, and yet you don't care about her at all. You selfish jerk." "Save your fake concern," Nenah replied coolly. "As long as I'm around, Grandma will never go hungry." As for you, if the family goes under, you'll have to count on your 3 genius sons to take care of you. I'm dying to see what kind of life they'll give you. Ethan chimed in. Make that 2. I'm not taking care of her. Vivian shot Ethan a killer look. She had no idea why she'd started this argument with Nenah. Now she just looked like an idiot. Her 2 sisters-in-law sat there, ready to watch her crash and burn. Vivian took a deep breath, trying to keep her cool. Deadpan, she said. Chill. As long as Martin's around, we're not going broke. Nenah snorted, her smile dripping with sarcasm. Martin's face instantly turned ugly, but he couldn't bring himself to confront Nenah about it. After all, the project he'd poured his heart into had been snatched away by Henry, whose proposal was way better than his. Martin was supposed to be the family's golden boy, yet he'd lost to someone who probably couldn't even pass an IQ test. That was too embarrassing. Vivian must have thought of the project too. Her face flushed, and she shut up. Any more talk would just make her the laughingstock. Sarah had been about to tear into Vivian, but watching Nenah shut her down made Sarah feel way better. Once Nenah sat down, Sarah spoke up. Okay, let's get down to business. The final contract with SN Corporation is locked in. I went to SN myself and saw that Henry's plan got the green light, so he's running the show. The deal with SN is a big one. Whatever you're thinking, I don't care. You all need to help Henry pull this off. I talked to Brian today. We're hosting a party and hoping to get SN's CEO to show up. If he comes, it could help us boost our partnership with SN. As soon as Sarah finished, Nenah's second uncle, Robert, cut in. Mom, SN's CEO never goes to these things. Don't waste your time. Sarah's eyes dulled. Still, it's worth trying. Our family isn't what it used to be. If we can get the CEO's support, maybe we'll turn things around. Just landing a project with SN wasn't enough for the Swanson family to really move forward. They needed FaceTime with the CEO to at least get on his radar. If they could leave a good impression, they might get a slice of the pie for other SN projects later on. Sarah let out a heavy sigh. At her age, she was tired of fighting these battles. But when her husband died, he'd put the whole family in her hands. She had to keep things together, no matter what. She didn't expect the Swanson family to become a huge success, but at least it wouldn't go downhill. That way, she kept her promise to her late husband. Nenah looked at Sarah, wanting to say something, but in the end, she just bit her lip and stayed quiet. The rest of the Swanson family understood how huge it would be if the SN Corp CEO showed up, so no one argued with Sarah. And another thing, Sarah continued, Nenah's been back for a while. I'm not here to dig up old drama, but she's been through a lot over the years. She deserves some real compensation. Sarah glanced at Vivian and said coolly, I've already consulted an expert. The 15th of next month is perfect. I'm holding a formal homecoming party for Nenah. Vivian immediately shot that down. No way. I'm not letting this happen. If you throw Nenah a welcome home party, what about Lily? Everyone will realize she's not the real daughter. Right now, only a few people in their circle knew the truth. Most people still believed Lily was the Swanson family's daughter. But a big public party would expose everything. Lily would be completely humiliated. Vivian was determined to protect her. Sarah's face darkened instantly, her presence radiating authority. So, Vivian, are you running the family now? Do I need your approval for every decision? Vivian stiffened, realizing Sarah was truly angry. She lowered her voice. That's not what I meant. Before Vivian could finish, Sarah snapped. I've been patient with you because you're Nenah's mother, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. I'm still in charge. If you want to call the shots, you'll have to wait until I'm gone. Vivian's heart raced. Catching the cold look James shot her, she quickly explained, I'm not trying to take over. It's just the homecoming party. Sarah interrupted again. The party is happening, period. Anyone who has a problem can leave the family. I want everyone to know Nenah is loved and supported. Vivian fell silent, thinking, what spell did Nenah cast to make Sarah so protective? This damned old hag has gone blind and heartless with age. Lily's been good to her since childhood. Even if Lily isn't her real granddaughter, there should be some affection, right? But she doesn't care about anything Lily's ever done for her. Nenah looked up at Sarah. The older woman showed her age now, gray threads weaving through her hair. Though she might not have the strength to control the family like before, she was still doing everything possible to protect Nenah, just as she always had. Nenah's nose stung, and a glisten of moisture welled up beneath her lowered eyes. Across from Nenah, Lily clenched her fists so tight her sharp nails dug into her skin, but she didn't feel the pain. Her eyes burned with pure hatred, directed at both Sarah and Nenah. Just because I'm not a real Swanson, Grandma's going to kick me out after Nenah is back? Am I just garbage to her? Something she can use and discard at will? Lily thought, her heart twisting with bitterness. She took a deep breath and plastered on a sweet smile. Grandma, let me handle the party, okay? Sarah gave her a cool glance. No need. I'll have someone reliable take care of it. Lily's eyes darkened. Is this damn old hag implying I'm not trustworthy? Vivian had just been put in her place by Sarah and didn't dare say another word. But watching Lily being wronged, she couldn't stand idly by. Too afraid to challenge Sarah again, she said to Lily with a snide tone, "Just stay out of it. Plenty of people in the family can handle this. Besides, you're not even blood related. This party is a big deal. If anything goes wrong, they'll just blame it all on you." Vivian snorted coldly. "And didn't you hear your grandma? She thinks you're not reliable." Sarah gave Vivian a cold stare, and Vivian instantly clammed up. Lily offered a gentle smile. "Ever since Nenah came home, there's been a lot of misunderstandings between us. Grandma, believe it or not, I see Nenah as family. What happened back then wasn't my choice. If I could find my real parents, I'd go back to them. But since I can't, I have to stay for now. Maybe that's why Nenah's upset." Before Sarah could respond, Lily turned to Vivian. "Mom, please don't blame Nenah anymore. I know you care about me, but Nenah's been through so much. Grandma just feels sorry for her. We all just want Nenah to be happy. I want to help with the party. I want Nenah to know I never meant to fight with her over anything. Grandma, give me a chance. I promise I won't screw it up." Sarah's cloudy eyes studied Lily for a long moment before she said casually, "You want to do it? Fine. It's yours. But if anything goes wrong, you'll answer to me." "I'll make sure everything goes perfectly," Lily smiled. "I promise." Sarah glanced at her, saying nothing else. Just like that, the recognition party was settled. No one objected, and no one even dared to. Sarah had made herself crystal clear. Anyone who challenged her would be kicked out of the family. Nobody wanted to get booted over something so trivial. After that, everyone ate in silence, stealing glances at Nenah. The table was thick with tension and awkwardness. Nenah remained unfazed, calmly eating her meal. She couldn't care less about the stares. Suddenly, Ethan nudged her arm. She looked up at him, her eyes silently asking, "What is it?" Ethan signaled her to look at Vivian's plate. Nenah glanced over. Even after all the drama, Vivian was eating with real appetite. Nenah drew her gaze back and raised an eyebrow at Ethan. Seeing her confusion, Ethan leaned in and whispered, "I snuck a little of my spit into her plate." Nenah was speechless. "Well, that's impressive." Ethan flashed a smug grin. "Pretty awesome, right? Felt good?" Nenah sipped her water, eyeing Vivian. Whether it was the delicious food or Ethan's spit, Vivian was eating with a look of sheer contentment. Nenah coolly looked away and shot Ethan a thumbs up. "Awesome." Only Ethan would pull something like this, she thought. "Learned it all from you," Ethan said, leaning back with a cocky grin. "If I hadn't seen you pull these stunts as kids, I never would have known such a great way to get back at someone." Nenah was at a loss for words. Suddenly, it hit Ethan, and he said, "By the way, how many times did you spike her food back then?" "I remember at least 5. Nenah set her glass down, her voice calm. Lost count. Whenever Vivian gave her a hard time, Nenah would play innocent and serve her a special meal with her special ingredient. She'd lost track of how many times Vivian had tormented her. So naturally, she had no idea how many meals she'd doctored in return. Probably half of Vivian's stomach is filled with my spit, Nenah thought, feeling an inexplicable urge to laugh. Ethan spent the rest of the meal sneaking glances at Vivian, barely containing his laughter. Nenah occasionally joined in with a chuckle. Vivian noticed they were laughing at her, but she couldn't afford to blow up again. So she just glared daggers at them. After dinner, everyone went their separate ways. Just as Nenah was about to head upstairs and crash, Ethan slung an arm around her. "Hey, let's go for a ride." Not going, Nenah refused instantly. She was exhausted and wanted nothing more than to sleep. "Come on, I've been practicing on my motorcycle for days. I'm finally good enough to take you for a ride. I've got some guys meeting up for drinks tonight. You've been back a while, and I still haven't introduced you to my boys. Let's go." Nenah was about to refuse, but Ethan's eager face won her over. "All right, let's go," she said. Ethan always parked his motorcycle right in the middle of the yard, showing it off daily since Nenah gave it to him. He'd bragged to anyone passing by, "Nenah got me this." The other family branches were totally jealous, but they didn't think it was Nenah's present. They assumed it was Ryan's. Ethan handed Nenah a helmet and was about to start the bike when he suddenly noticed the people in the car ahead. He frowned. Why are Hazel and Lily together? Nenah followed his gaze and saw Hazel and Lily climbing into the same car. Feeling nothing strange, she asked, "What's up?" Lily's always trashed Aunt Joanna's side of the family. She used to talk mad trash about Aunt Joanna. Hazel's always seemed scared of Lily and never even talks to her. So why are they heading out together? Ethan said, sounding puzzled. After a brief pause, he shrugged it off. "Whatever, let's go." On the wide road, Ethan rode his limited edition motorcycle, whooping with pure joy. Nenah had never seen him this excited back at the Swanson residence. Just owning a bike he loves can make him this happy, Nenah thought. At a red light, Ethan stopped and turned to Nenah, grinning ear to ear. "Nenah, you know what? This is honestly the happiest day I've ever had." Nenah lowered her eyes slightly. "You were never happy before?" Ethan went quiet for a moment. "Nope. Growing up, I was always living in others' shadows. Even when we tried to comfort each other, it never felt like real happiness. We were the kids Mom never wanted." When the light turned green, Ethan revved up the engine, his voice getting louder. "Later, I moved in with Grandma. She looked out for me, so things got better. But nothing ever truly made me happy. Today's different. I'm riding my dream bike, hanging out with my little sister. All that crappy stuff seems to fade away." Nenah pressed her lips together. Since returning to the Swanson family, she'd never really taken the time to understand Ethan. He always stepped in when Vivian gave her a hard time. But she'd forgotten that he was also one of the kids the family had never truly cared about. He was a Swanson, but his clothes were always from obscure brands. With only 30,000 to his name, he'd blown it all on a necklace to make her happy. Meanwhile, Martin strutted around in designer suits worth hundreds of thousands. Lily got millions in monthly allowance and drove a $1 million luxury car. Ethan, a real Swanson, lived worse than Lily, an adopted daughter. Nenah wanted to say something several times but held back. After about 10 minutes, they pulled up in front of a nightclub. There stood a few guys around Ethan's age, early 20s. They were dressed casually, laughing and chatting. One of them spotted Ethan and shouted, "Whoa, Ethan, is that a limited edition bike? When'd you score this? Did you hit the jackpot or something? How'd you afford this beauty?" Another teased. The guys swarmed the bike, their eyes wide with excitement. They'd only ever seen it online before. Seeing it in person was such a rush. "Ethan, can I take it for a spin? I've been dying to ride it," one begged. After Nenah dismounted, Ethan parked the bike and playfully smacked the nearest guy's head. "No way. My sister got me this." "Hands off." "Your sister?" The guys exchanged glances. "Didn't you say you couldn't stand her?" "Knock it off." Ethan shot them a glare. "How could I not like my sister?" "But you said that just seeing her pissed you off and you wished she'd disappear," one guy said. Nenah crossed her arms, giving Ethan a half smile. "I really get on your nerves, huh, Ethan?" Ethan got flustered. "Don't listen to them, Nenah. I wasn't talking about you. I meant Lily." Only then did the guys finally notice Nenah, and their eyes went wide. "Ethan, is this your girlfriend?" asked one guy. "Damn, she's gorgeous, way hotter than the school beauty." Ethan kicked the guy in the butt. "This is Nenah, my real sister. The one I mentioned before was a fake. Quit talking nonsense, or you'll make Nenah think I don't like her." The guys all chimed in. "Since when did your mom have another daughter?" Ethan quickly explained Nenah and Lily's story, and his buddies finally got it. "Hey, Nenah, I'm Leo Chapman, Ethan's roommate," one said. "Eric Smith, also Ethan's roommate," another added. "Kevin Grant, same here," the third guy grinned. Nenah smiled warmly. "I'm Nenah Swanson." These guys are all straightforward and real. Ethan's got good taste in friends, Nenah thought. After shooting the breeze for a while, they made their way into the club. Ethan had booked a booth, but without using any family connections, he just grabbed a regular one. The moment Nenah walked in, she spotted a cake with "Happy Birthday, Ethan" written on it. She stood there stunned for a moment, then turned to Ethan. "It's your birthday today?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I didn't plan to celebrate, but these guys insisted." "Why didn't you tell me?" Nenah frowned. She hadn't gotten him a gift. "No big deal." Ethan shrugged. "Honestly, I doubt anyone at home even knows my birthday. I've just gotten used to celebrating with these guys over the years, so I didn't tell you." A sharp ache tugged at Nenah's heart. Even though Vivian never liked her, Nenah got to celebrate her birthday every year. When she was little, Sarah used to celebrate her birthday with her. Later, Scarlet took over. And then Ryan, Elaine, and a bunch of other friends would always make a point to show up for her birthday. She never really cared about the day, but her friends sure did. But it looked like Ethan never had a birthday celebration with the Swanson family. Nenah snapped out of her thoughts, pulled a card out of her bag, and handed it to Ethan. "Here." "What's this?" Ethan asked, looking at the card in confusion. "Your birthday present. Buy whatever you want," Nenah said, pausing for a moment. "There's $2 million on that card. If you need more, just tell me." Ethan shot up from his seat, his voice trembling with excitement. $2 million? Did I mishear that? Or did she misspeak? He thought, totally stunned. "Not enough?" Nenah pulled out another card. "Here, $3 million. That's all I've got on me right now. Just wait a sec. I'll have someone bring over more cards." With that, she shot a quick message to Elaine. Ethan fell silent, thinking, "Nenah, do you have any idea what you're doing? $2 million, then $3 million, $5 million handed over, and you didn't even bat an eye. And now you're going to have someone send even more cards? Seriously, are you nuts, or am I imagining things here?" Ethan's buddies stared at Nenah, their eyes wide and mouths hanging open. The room went dead silent. After what felt like ages, Ethan broke the spell first. He quickly grabbed Nenah's phone. "Don't send more cards. I can't take your money." Nenah frowned. "Why not? Is my money dirty or something?" Ethan's mouth twitched. "It's not that. This is Ryan's money, right? If I take it all, what if he comes after you? I don't want him thinking I'm mooching off you. I appreciate your kindness, but take the money back." Nenah pinched the bridge of her nose. "This is my money, okay?" "Yeah, I know. Ryan's money is basically yours," Ethan coaxed patiently. "Be good. Take it back. Don't let Ryan think less of you." Nenah was speechless. Ugh, can't he understand basic language? Ethan's buddies glanced at Nenah, then at Ethan. Kevin couldn't help leaning in and whispering to Ethan, "Dude, what does Nenah do to have this kind of cash?" "Well, it's her boyfriend's money," Ethan replied. Nenah stared, totally speechless. Kevin and the others nodded, getting the picture, and let it go. The guys lit up the candles for Ethan. After he made his wish, the drinks started flowing. Nenah slipped the cards back into her bag, saying nothing more. "Damn, am I seeing things? Ethan, look, is that Lily over there? She's beating someone up," Leo suddenly shouted.